Oh, where to begin? Where to begin? Where to begin? How about at the beginning? Because I once heard that's the very best place to start. No, I'm not trying to be sneaky by playing Working Man by Rush, the greatest rock and roll band in the history of rock and roll music, to start the show for a second consecutive day. Did this on Friday as well, when our All Request Friday theme was working songs. So, of course, I worked in Working Man. Today, I opted for Working Man again, and I promise it'll disappear tomorrow. It'll show up again from time to time, but it'll disappear tomorrow. I decided today to play Working Man again because, if you didn't notice, there was no 9 a.m. newscast to begin our show today. My manager came to me a couple of weeks ago and said, we want to make a change. Beginning in September, among other things, we want to start you right at 9 o'clock. We just finished all news mornings. People have received all of the news and information they need. So we want to start you right at 9, like you were shot out of a cannon. That was his exact description of it. I said, you know what? You shoot me out of that cannon. Let's go. And I decided if I was being shot out of a cannon, I should announce my presence with authority. And what more authoritative way to announce my presence on this Tuesday, the 2nd of September, other than with the riffs and sounds of Rush and Working Man. So there's that part of it. The other part that I need to get to as we begin the show today. You know, I was going to take a PD day today, and then I decided, no, I work for a living. That's just a little joke to my teacher friends. Are you laughing with me, near me, at me? Not at all. That's okay. It's all out of envy, because you may recall that I was supposed to be. At one point I was going to be a teacher, and then I decided no. I'm not cut out for it. You are better people than I am a person, you teaching people. You enjoy your PD day today, and then back to school starts tomorrow. I would like to know, because I was unable to figure it out, who brought me the beer to the Fan Fest on Sunday? Was it you? Did you bring me because it got a little bit busy, especially at the end of our 1-hour broadcast on Sunday afternoon from Fan Fest. It was a great day all around, as it always is. People were all fired up about the upcoming Kitchener Rangers season. We got to go into the Odd at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, watch the Rangers beat the Saginaw Spirit. Good atmosphere for a preseason game. But when I finished the broadcast, one of our promotion people handed me a bag, and it had a couple of cans of beer and an O. Henry bar in it. I have no idea I don't know where it came from. I'm sorry. I certainly didn't turn it down. It went straight home and into the fridge, chocolate bar and beers. And I'm very grateful to whomever it was that brought it and thought of me. Some Sittler 10-point lager. That's right. The National Hockey League record for points in a game does not belong to Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby or even Wayne Gretzky. It belongs to Elmira's St. Jacob's Zone. Daryl Sittler of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Sittler's home baking is still there in Conestoga if you ever want to check it out. Going back to the way we started our show today, without a 9 o'clock newscast, it is part of a wee bit of a change here on the show. And I mentioned this to you last week, that the change was coming and that I thought that you would like it, because we recently did a survey of your listening habits and what you liked and didn't like about the radio station generally, this show specifically, me even more specifically. Thanks for all the constructive feedback. I got you. I heard you loud and clear. Good luck changing this old stubborn guy, but we're working on it. Anyway, one of the things that we talked about, or we learned from you during that survey, was the frequency of interruption that you felt was happening during the talk show. And so, effective this very day, not only are we getting shot out of a cannon at 9 o'clock in the morning to start the show without the newscast, because we figure you got the news you need with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas all through the morning up until 9. So we'll just get right into our conversations at 9 o'clock. And also through the show, what we have decided is that at this time of the day, you have probably already gotten to where you need to get. And so you won't be hearing traffic updates every 10 minutes during the show. Now, if something big is happening and there's a big issue on the roads, of course, we're going to tell you about that, because that's what we do at this radio station. We keep you informed about all of the things that are happening in your community. And if there's something immediate and something pressing, you bet your bottom dollar you're going to hear about it on the show. So that's not going to disappear. However, the regular, every 10 minutes, around 9:11, 9:21, 41, 51, I don't do a very good job of my timing sometimes. Okay, I rarely do a good job of my timing. But anyway, those traffic report and weather report interruptions to our conversations have been removed from the show. So we have, if you think about it, the traffic and weather component took up a full minute each time. And then with the sound effects that go around the traffic and the weather, we're pushing, about 90 seconds, maybe a little bit more, 4 times an hour. So we are getting 6 minutes of time back so that we can converse with one another. It leaves us a whole lot more space on the show. Contrary to popular opinion, or what you might have thought the interruptions were all about, it's got absolutely nothing to do with commercials. And I want to emphasize that, because our partners on this show who have chosen to advertise with us are a part of the conversation. They've got something they want you to hear about, and they use this show as the vehicle to deliver that message. And I am so grateful to every one of them. And I promise you, we'll make room for your message too, if you'd like to be a part of our Mike Farwell Show experience. So the 6 minutes-ish, maybe a little bit more than, that we have found for more conversation on this show comes from the end of traffic and weather every 10 minutes throughout our talk show. You'll still get that on All News Mornings. You'll get that through All News Afternoons as well. But during this time of the day, unless there's something really big happening, we thought, you know what we should do? We should leave more room for conversation. And I wanted to tell you this story connected to our partners who choose to advertise with us, and we're so grateful to them. I was walking out of the station one day last week, and I ran into a gentleman in the hallway who I had not seen before, but he was visiting Ritz Homes, which is the office across the hall from us here at our studios on the boardwalk. We share the building with Ritz Homes. They're right across the hall. And he had just visited there. So we're walking out, and he says, "Are you with the radio station?" I said, "Yes, sir, that's right, I am." He said, "Which one are you?" And I said, I'm Mike Farwell, and I apologize for you having to meet me in person. I'm the short, bald guy with the big mouth. He says, "Oh my God, I listen to you all the time. Every day when I'm out in my car, I'm listening to you. And that's why I came here today to the radio station, because I heard Ritz Homes advertising during your show, and I wanted to make a connection to them." You see how that works? Our partners have messages to share, and sometimes those messages reach you at the time you want to make that connection. And if you're lucky, you'll come over here and you'll run into one of us schmucks on our way into or out of the radio station. But we do have lots of time now, even more time, to engage in conversation, talk about the issues of the day, locally, provincially, nationally, internationally, and even more space so you can share your thoughts on the show. And I have a feeling that today, being the first Tuesday of the month, when we have an hour with our policing leaders so you can get your policing questions answered, I have a feeling that'll be something that you can take full advantage of today between 11 and 12 when you call in to talk to Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell or Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, who heads up our traffic services unit.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
All right, with the changes that are in effect as of today, some things are going to remain the same, including our Farwell Show 5 at the beginning of the show. Number 1, Ontario Premier Doug Ford coming to Kitchener today. The Premier will be joined by his Minister of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development, and he's set to make an announcement. The Premier is at noon, 570 News Radio. We'll have a reporter there. Number 2, the City of Kitchener really wants to stop sending bills in the mail. Council has agreed to ask the province for support in phasing out paper billing while establishing fees for anyone still requesting a paper bill. It's costing Kitchener about $1.25 million every year to send paper bills in the mail. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, an escapee from the women's prison in Kitchener was not on the loose for long. 59-year-old Carolyn Burden was not in her minimum security unit at the Grand Valley Institution for Women during an inmate count on Sunday morning. But Toronto police had arrested Burden by yesterday afternoon, about 30 hours after she was marked as missing from the prison in Kitchener. Correctional Services Canada is now investigating the escape. Burden is serving.
Farwell Show now.
Burden is serving a 5-year sentence for fraud. Number 4 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, make it back-to-back upset wins at the U.S. Open for Canada's Felix Auger-Aliassime. The Montreal native knocked off third-seeded Alexander Zverev of Germany on Saturday before beating 15th-ranked Russian Andrei Rublev in straight sets yesterday.
You are headed back to the quarterfinals here for the first time since 2021. What is going through your mind right now?
I think it feels even better than the first time. I think, the first time, at 21, I was kind of, on my way up, and then, to have a few setbacks, injuries, struggle of confidence, and then to come back the second time in the quarterfinals here, it feels much better. It feels more deserved, and I'm soaking in, every moment here.
And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Canadian actor Graham Greene has passed away. The 73-year-old was nominated for an Oscar for his role in Dances with Wolves and was also a recipient of the Order of Canada. Earlier this year, Greene won a Governor General's Award for Lifetime Achievement.
People always said, you should move to Los Angeles. And I said, no, I don't like Los Angeles. I hate New York. I don't like any of those places. I was born in Canada, and I'm here to stay here, and that's it.
Greene's management team says the actor passed away peacefully yesterday at his home in Stratford. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning, the 2nd of September. I don't know if you can still see, if you're watching on Rogers TV Cable 20 today, maybe you can see that light bulb that's above my head. Maybe you can just hear in my voice that I stumbled upon the answer, I think. In fact, I'm very confident. I have stumbled onto the answer that will save our region both time and money. You may recall that we are in the midst of exploring the idea of banning right-hand turns on some, not all, but some red lights around the region. And despite the data that has already been shared supporting the idea that maybe we should look into this further for safety's sake, I think, no, I don't just think, I know there is a crucial piece of this data that's missing. So I'm going to help the region out right now, because this is what I want to do. I always want to help as best I can. And if I can save us time and money in the process, ding, dang it, I'm going to do that. So I think we can put our pens down or move our keyboards away and stop the research right now, unless we find this one crucial part that has been missing. And I think what we will end up doing is not even bothering to go through any more of the exercise of researching whether we need to ban right-hand turns on red lights. I'll explain. The light bulb is still on above my head, and I'll explain coming up, and we'll visualize this. We'll walk through it together on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Okay, I asked our morning news anchor, Luke Schultz, who was filling in this morning for Christine Clark, to call all of the people he knows at our regional government. Let them know that I'm going to bring them a time and money-saving idea around 9:15 this morning. I'm a little bit behind my time, but that's okay. You can take your coffee break, extend that coffee break at the region, and if you didn't hear the message from Luke already, I'll give you another moment to send out that regional government-wide email. I want all staff, all counselors included on the email because we're going to save you both time and money right here on the show, I promise. And you don't even have to pay for this service that we are providing you today. But this light bulb went off for me over the weekend, and I will liken this to a conversation we had a little while back about the gun buyback program that the federal government has recently begun. And I suggested to you and would again this morning that I wish somebody had, and if they did and then they were just ignored, I suppose that's fine. But I wish somebody had suggested in the process of creating this buyback program to bring up the point that people who are likely to return the firearms that you are now banning are not the people who are using them illegally, right? It's not as though so the only firearms you are collecting is from people who are licensed to own and use them for whatever reasons they're using them. But people who are inclined to use them in a criminal manner aren't willingly going to walk up and turn them in somewhere because, they might get caught with other criminal charges on their record or something. It just seemed to be an easy way to stop a program that likely won't have the intended results. And so on the weekend, I was reading a story out of Ottawa, and it was a municipal councillor there talking about the need to ban right turns on red lights. And I know we're having that conversation here, so I was interested to read more. And the rhetoric in this story was pretty high level. This counselor was talking about people taking their lives into their hands when they walk around the city of Ottawa, and how she had just witnessed a person on a bicycle get hit by a vehicle turning right, and this shouldn't be a life and death experience on the roads, and so we need to ban right turns on red lights. And I thought, okay, listen, I want us to be safe out there every single day with every single trip we take, whether we're taking it on foot, by bicycle, in a vehicle. I want us to be safe. But when this counselor claimed to have seen the person on the bicycle hit by a vehicle turning right, and now that means we have to ban right turns on red lights, I started thinking about it. So if you can work with me here, we're going to visualize together, okay? If you are driving a vehicle and you come up to a red light and you want to turn right, what has to happen in order for you to hit either A, a pedestrian, or B, a person on a bicycle? Because you see, if you're making a right-hand turn on a red light, there should not be anybody crossing that street where you are turning right, because that's where the light is green and the traffic is flowing. If anybody is crossing that street to your right when you are facing the red light, they are crossing that street not only illegally, but dangerously. Can you see that intersection in your mind? If you're sitting there at a red light, you want to turn right, there is no right of way for pedestrians and or bicycles to your right. So what would, if you think about it, what would have to happen in order for you driving the vehicle to strike somebody either on foot or on bicycle? Are they crossing in front of you? Fair enough. I suppose that would be, but the argument is that it's the right turn on the red light that's causing the problem here. So if you were approaching that same intersection and the light was green and you wanted to make a right-hand turn, well, now then we have a problem, don't we? Because if you're not slowing down enough or paying enough attention, there could very well be people crossing that crosswalk If the light is green, the crosswalk to your right is full of people, maybe people on bicycles, crossing legally because they have the right of way when you are facing the green light. But that's not the case when the light is red. So where is that person or where is that bicycle when the light you are facing is red? That somehow gets struck when you're making the right-hand turn. I can't make it make sense in my mind. And so I looked at the idea here in the region where we are considering a ban on right turns on red lights at some intersections. And in the notice of motion brought forward to Regional Council, good data. 89% of pedestrian collisions occur at signalized intersections. Cool. According to the CAA, about 55% of near misses between a vehicle and a pedestrian happen when the vehicle is making a right turn. Great. As I just explained, that makes some sense to me, right? If you're coming up to an intersection and that light is green and you're going to make your right-hand turn, there are people in that crosswalk. But if the light is red, where are the people? They should be standing on the sidewalk waiting for their time that they are allowed to cross the street where you want to turn to the right. So to save the region all kinds of time and money in this, what I would ask for is, as you do the research, you need to determine the color of the light when these right-hand turn collisions are occurring. If you don't know, like if they're occurring at red lights, then you've got something to build on. But I would submit to you that the way intersections work, the vast majority of these collisions, when vehicles are turning right, are happening when the light is green, not red. And so I ask you, why? Why do we think somehow, miraculously, that the ban of the right turn on a red light is going to make a tinker's darn worth of difference? So, regional staff, as I know you're working hard on this stuff, and as you continue to work hard on this, could you just look for that data point? And if that data point, what color is the traffic signal when the right-hand turn collision is occurring? If that data point doesn't exist, I think we need some new data points. Or maybe we should just give this up entirely. For the record, I don't hate the idea of a ban on right-hand turns at red lights, because I think it would be punishment for us not usually stopping, right? A lot of us who drive, I mean, if we see a red light at an intersection and we're making a right-hand turn, we barely brake. So I'm okay with, on that basis alone, I'd be okay with banning the right turn. But don't tell me that you're going to cut down on collisions, because if you're turning right on a red, there should be nobody in the crosswalk to your right. Region, I just save you some time and money. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. A new school year begins tomorrow. Traditionally, it would start today, but there's a PD day to begin the year. So the kiddies, as you well know, are headed back to class tomorrow. And in our ongoing efforts to ensure that you are armed with the very best information, we are getting you ready for back to school on the program today, including a look at the return of the report entitled Signposts of Success, which offers us an evidence-based analysis of Ontario's elementary school test score results, looking back at 3 years of data. The author of this report is an emeritus professor of economics at Wilfrid Laurier University. David Johnson joins the program. David, good morning.
Yeah, I'm just walking outside where the cell service is.
Uh-oh, David, I had you for a moment and then you disappeared on me.
I know, and I warned your producer that might happen.
You sound loud and clear now. This is great.
Yeah, well, that's what happened. I went outside.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. How can I help you?
Well, let's start with the report itself and how you went about compiling this data.
Well, quite a long time ago, I mostly spent a lot of time thinking about how to look at these school level, we'll call them pass rates, and at the EKO assessments. So in grade 3 and grade 6, we do a literacy and numeracy assessment, and you can calculate the percentage of students that pass those assessments at every school in the province. And I do it for 3 years to make sure that we're just not looking at a weird year, because sometimes the classes are very small and you can have great variation in the pass rate without considering that interesting. So we average over 3 years. And then as part of that project, the Ministry of Education now calculates the characteristics of every school in the province. If you ask for them, you can get more than what's public. And then you can say, let's look at 2 schools that have the same in the data that's available to the public. It's the percentage of parents who've been to university and the percentage of lone parents, because those are the big variables that matter the most. And you can compare 2 schools that have the same students, and you can ask which school does better.
Were you surprised at any of the results, David, insofar as how well schools performed in, for example, lower socioeconomic class neighborhoods?
Well, there are always surprises because nobody does this correctly except us at CD Howe. So there's always the sense in which a school that has a very low or average pass rate, but much more challenging students to deal with, does as well or better than a school with, we'll say, families that arrive with lots of advantages. I just looked at the Waterloo data, and so the 2 that are beside each other, Westmount and West Vale has much stronger demographic characteristics, but compared to other schools in the province, doesn't do as well. Westmount is a little bit better than other schools in the province. But when we do this exercise, one of the things that also comes out is that by definition, there's a lot of average schools. So you can imagine 100 people having a 100-meter race. There's going to be a huge mass in the middle. And then you're going to be at the front and I'm going to be at the end. and so we're the interesting people because one of us is really slow and one of us is really fast. But there's always a lot of schools in the middle where you really can't say whether they're doing a better than average job or a worse than average job. They are, in fact, doing the average job. What is really interesting to think is that you can have schools that have very strong-looking pass rates, but they come from such strong neighborhoods that nothing exciting is happening there. One of the things that this whole project tries to do very hard is understand that the product, the end product, the literate and numerate elementary student is a joint product of the family and the school. It's neither only the school and it's not only the family. It's a mixture. And so the whole exercise here is to try and separate out that mixture by figuring out which part is family, and then the rest is school.
Does a report like this then, David, give other schools insight into perhaps how to improve those outcomes?
I certainly hope so, because in principle, oh dear, that's a terrible pun. In principle, you could be a school and you could say, look, a school like me has a 50% pass rate and I have a 35% pass rate. So that means that there's 15 percentage points out there, we'll call it, that I can try to figure out what are they doing that I'm not doing. And in the ideal world, that would happen. Now, whether that happens or not, I do not know because I'm not in charge. But in principle, that's what you would like to see. You would like to understand. And when I did this the first time in 2006, I had the opportunity to visit 13 schools that were much better than other schools with the same demographics. And I asked them what they did. So that's out there. But other people should be, my view is people should be learning from each other what's going well and what's going badly. And we can certainly do that with this kind of data. And it's much harder to do it when you don't take into account the family contribution. because it's just not that interesting in the Waterloo region. Again, to take the example that I happened to look at this morning, Westvale and Westmount, they have quite different student backgrounds. And so it's not interesting to look at their absolute pass rates as it is to look at the contribution of the school.
What themes emerged, kind of overall themes emerged from your work on the report this year, David?
Well, we were able to, once again, this is a repeated report, right? So the central message is to say, look, there are schools that are equivalent to each other in the background of their students. If you take a large number of tests, which we do over 3 years, you can legitimately compare those schools. You can say one is doing better and one is doing worse. And if the gap is big enough, then that's interesting. So that's the central message is always it's a partnership where both partners matter. And the idea that is often out there is, we don't need to bother to look at these school level results because we already know that in Waterloo region, the half dozen schools that come from the neighborhoods with the, in this case, the most educated, affluent, intact family neighborhoods are going to do better. And in a sense, that's true, but in a sense, that's also very uninteresting because there's more stuff you can learn from that. The other pieces of this report, because we were doing this post-COVID, so to wait for 3 years of data, you had to wait 3 years after COVID because we missed 2 years of testing. And also, most people don't know, but they actually changed the test slightly pre and post COVID, and so it was a little uncomfortable comparing the pre and post COVID tests. The old one was paper based, the new one is computer based. So it was a deliberate choice to wait until you had lots of data, rather than rush off and say, oh well, we have it was really hot this summer, so global warming is true. Now, sometimes we think global warming is true, not because we had one hot summer, but because we had 20 years of hot summers. So the idea of waiting for some data was important in this. The other parts that repeated were we discovered, as we already know, that the students who move into a new school in grade 6, 7, 8 do much worse than the ones who stay in their same school. So that has a cost on students to have a middle school that starts in grade 6. We learned that the Catholic boards have significantly better results than the public boards, even controlling for the students they get. So sometimes people claim that the two boards get a different mix of students, but they don't. In fact, they have the same mix of students. And the Catholic boards systematically do better all the way across the province, including in Waterloo region. They just have better results. And that's an interesting phenomenon in itself. And I don't have an explanation for it, but it's out there. And then the last bit of the report actually tried to look at, I think there were 38 boards that run more than 30 schools. And we tried to find a way to understand whether there were boards that were significantly, made a contribution significantly to all their schools that improved results. And there are many, many average boards, but there are a couple of boards that stick out like sore thumbs. The Niagara District School Board, the Windsor Essex Catholic District School Board, and then the 3 French boards. And we might want to think about why that is. And I can only speculate because I don't know. Somebody has to go and say, what's going on at District School Board of Niagara that generates such good results?
Hopefully, a report like this becomes the starting point for just such conversations. It's really interesting stuff, David, and I appreciate the time you've given us on the show today. Thank you.
No problem. I hope people find it enjoyable, but really the main audience, I hope, is people who work in the system and who say, what I do matters, and I can show that what I do matters at my school. I can change, results can be changed at schools beyond the sort of, I got the kids I get and I can't do anything with them. That's just not true.
And lifelong learning is something that we talk about all the time. So even after having, achieved and done all that work to get into the classroom, we can continue learning about how to do and how to deliver that curriculum better, I think.
I certainly hope so.
David, really appreciate the time. Thank you very much for this. David Johnson is an emeritus professor of economics at Wilfrid Laurier University. Joins us to talk about signposts of success. An evaluation of Ontario's elementary schools finds that middle school, quite frankly, is setting students back more than helping in any way. So if you go to a different school for grade 7, 8, or 6, 7, 8, why would we continue that when we see the results the way that they are? And the opportunity for those working within the system to engage in some lifelong learning about how to do better and how to achieve those better results, irrespective of the students who show up in your classroom. I know we're not back to school today, but we are tomorrow. It's a back to school week, and we want to make sure that transition is as smooth and safe as possible for you and your family tomorrow. So we'll check in with the Dean at the Faculty of Education at Wilfrid Laurier next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Tomorrow is the big day, which means today all of the nerves are activated, right? Back to school. So how can we ensure that the transition goes well? Maria Cantolini-Williams is the Dean in the Faculty of Education at Wilfrid Laurier University, joins us to talk about that. And Maria, in a general way, why don't we just start there? What can we do as families to ensure that the transition back to school tomorrow is as smooth and as safe as possible?
Well, thank you, Mike, for the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite topics. And I think it's so important that parents speak positively and optimistically about the school year. Of course, we all know that transitions are challenging, but given the fact that we have one more day to prepare for school tomorrow, with PD Day, PA Day being today, with both school boards, I think it's very important that, of course, tonight there's good sleep and nutrition. Again, if there's an opportunity to walk around the school, just to see the school again, to be familiar with the environment outside, maybe meet some of the children who will also be attending the same school, getting to know the names of the teachers. I think as parents, we can look at the websites and become more familiar with the school community, and all those little strategies do help for making the transition more smooth and having students look at school as certainly a positive, exciting experience.
I think that's really important when you talk about maybe seeing some of the other kids that will be attending the school, if you're lucky enough to bump into a teacher on that little tour around, because it's a first day tomorrow for everybody again.
That's right. And as we all know, certainly there's changes always happening. And so, maybe the same principal's not there from last year, maybe not the same teachers, maybe not the same children. But if there's an opportunity for getting to know someone else who might be in the same school or class, or even if parents look on websites and get to know the names of principals and teachers, they can use those with the children. If they know the class the child's going to be in, that's definitely a bonus. Certainly, again, being positive and looking at the school as an exciting new start. We do want to acknowledge any trepidation that children may have and talk to them about, some of their questions. I think it's really important, again, to make sure that routines are set up and that the first day of school they have the proper clothing and food. Those are all challenges. Fortunately, we have lots of supports. So I think that if a child is ready, the school should also be ready for the child and be welcoming and make it be a smooth transition.
You talked about the difficulty with these transitions, and I think we understand that changes are difficult, especially when there is going to be a little more structure to one's day now that we're returning to school. But it sounds, Maria, like the familiarization can go a long way to easing that transition so that the kids have a better understanding, and the parents too, I suppose, of what it is they're walking into during this transition.
Yes, definitely. And, in my view, the more parents are involved, the better it is. I realize parents are busy and certainly have lots of commitments, but if they can be familiar with the school environment and what some of the expectations are, even the times of the bells and recesses and how the day is structured, they can talk to the child about that. And I realize we only have one more day for getting ready, but today should be definitely a day that's focused on being prepared and getting good rest and speaking about the school as much as possible in a very positive way, because children can often feel our stress. And if we're not feeling comfortable, then that'll be, communicated to them, and we don't want that to happen. We certainly want them to get off to a good, fresh start for a new school year.
How important is it to give our child a certain amount of independence as they embark in this transition?
Well, that's a good question. Certainly, independence is on a continuum, and we know that certainly older children can handle more independence, but schools really are structured so that children do have responsibilities for toileting and for feeding themselves. So it's important for parents to model some of those skills at home and to teach children some of the skills and strategies that they're going to need. I think it's, important for them to remember the age that the child's at and how they can both best meet success in the school environment. We know that independence is great, but also scaffolding learning is really important so that every step is, the next step along that continuum of becoming more and more independent.
You mentioned at the beginning, Maria, this is one of your favorite things to talk about. What makes you so passionate about this?
Well, that's, again, another good question. I have had lots of experience in the world of school and early childhood education, having worked at the Waterloo Catholic District School Board and now working in teacher education. Much of my work has been about helping children and youth be successful in school, and certainly, again, having parents be involved. And again, it takes a community to raise a child, so it doesn't have to be just parents, caregivers, grandparents, loved ones, neighbors. I think we all have a responsibility to help our children learn as much as possible and to be excited about that learning.
I really appreciate the time you've made for us on the show today. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Maria Cantillini-Williams is the Dean in the Faculty of Education at Wilfrid Laurier University, helping us ease that transition for back to school tomorrow. If it's anything like my household was, you've been getting used to those new bedtimes for a whole week already as you get ready to go back to class tomorrow. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, residents of a neighborhood near a men's shelter in Kitchener say crime has increased since the shelter opened. We talk about it next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You may recall the shelter that was being operated out of the former Schwaben Club in Kitchener, across from Eastwood Collegiate on Weber. Schwaben front doors would face King Street down by Montgomery. I think you remember the Schwaben Club. And the shelter that was there temporarily. The reaction from the neighborhood, the Rockway neighborhood, was not exactly warm. There were many residents in that neighborhood who complained of theft, vandalism, open drug use, strangers in their backyard, etc. I attended a neighborhood meeting during that time. Eventually, that shelter at the former Schwaben Club would close, and the region of Waterloo relocated some of those residents to create a temporary, again, men's shelter in the former Edith McIntosh Child Care Center on Stirling near Cortland. That happened back in 2023, And much like we witnessed in the Rockway neighborhood, residents now living near this shelter on Stirling Avenue South are experiencing similar circumstances. Wendy McGrattan is one of those residents and joins us on the show this morning. Wendy, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much for reaching out to us.
It is our pleasure to have you on the show to share your story. And along with Wendy, Eric Lease is with us as well. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Thanks very much for making the time in your day. I really do appreciate it. Wendy, let me start with you if I could. What sorts of things have you seen happening in the neighborhood that's causing you concern?
Well, it's pretty well the same as what you just mentioned about the previous shelter. And I've lived in this house. I said on the CTV News that I'd been here 27 years, and one of my neighbors corrected me because they moved in the same time I did. It's actually been 30 years. So I've noticed a huge, huge change since the shelters moved in. We didn't have any crime in the neighborhood whatsoever until the shelters moved in. And this is the third one. And it's on it's on the grounds of the high school of Cameron Heights, which shocks us even more. It's within 500 feet of the school. So they share the same entrance. And then when you see the sign as you're going into the school, it mentions that it's, the high school, the pool, and it still has Edith McIntosh Daycare Center up there. So it's on the same grounds because it's advertised on the sign right across the road. So the crime it's escalated like you wouldn't believe. We've had people in the hot tubs in the backyard, the properties that abut right up to the actual compound. They've just had people in their hot tubs. They've had people shooting up drugs in their backyard. The drug paraphernalia has been left in their backyard. One neighbor had to actually erect a higher fence because they were climbing over. So she watches this from her window. So we know that it's not crime coming from within the neighborhood. A lot of it is coming right from the shelter as we're witnessing it. And last year we almost had a fire. If they don't get admittance into the shelter, then they seek other places to set up their tents, which goes right behind on the other side of our fences on the property, which abuts up to the Iron Horse Trail. So last year we had to call the fire department because when it got colder, they were building bonfires, and of course all our fences are wooden. So we've been calling city bylaw lately on a daily basis. They have been good. As soon as we call them, they've been coming and taking the tents down. But we've had our cars keyed, bullet holes in the windows. It's been unbelievable. We even had to have a neighborhood watch because when we leave to go on holidays, we have to have somebody make sure that they're either staying in our house or coming in constantly checking up on the house. And I've had 2 break-ins as well. My car got broken into a month ago, and then we all had our cars keyed, but only the ones directly across from the shelter got keyed. They didn't go down to the other end of Stirling towards Cortland. It was right across the road. And then I could see even in the middle of the night, they're running down screaming at the top of their lungs or knocking on our doors for water in the middle of the night, like at 4 a.m. So it's so disturbing to see. But I really worry about the kids on the grounds of the high school. Like I've never ever heard of it being on the grounds of a high school before. And then some of the neighbors have mentioned that their kids, before they come out for phys ed, a drug sweep has to be done on the grounds of the high school before they even come out for their phys ed classes. So it's only 500 feet.
Eric,
from the school.
And I remember when the relocation was happening to Edith McIntosh, the former Edith McIntosh Child Care Center, and some concerns were raised about the proximity to the high school for sure. And Eric, I wonder what this has done to the character or the feeling in the neighborhood with all of this occurring around you. How does it feel coming and going from your own home?
Wow, Mike, that's a great question. It's probably the most impactful question for us because all of the crime, we feel the disproportionate amount of crime on our street makes us feel totally unsafe in our own homes. You can walk up and down our street. You won't see any kids playing out on their front yards. We feel unsafe going out, putting our garbage out in the evenings. You feel unsafe even in your own homes. I mean, I have a bullet hole in my front window, so I'm not too sure where I should feel safe on this street. It's absolutely devastating to live here. since the shelters moved in.
Wendy mentioned that bylaw has been called virtually every day, and the response has been good, Eric. But have there been any other conversations with city councillors, regional councillors, anybody to try to mitigate these problems?
Mike, we've been in contact now with various levels of government. We have spoken with our city councillor for the ward. She feels that there's not much that we can do because of she feels that it's people's zoning if we try to move the shelter somewhere else. We feel differently. We feel that we're not trying to discriminate against certain people. We're trying to discriminate against certain facilities that are in proximity to the school. We just feel that if you were to ask any person, it's really just commonsensical that you really shouldn't have a shelter really on the grounds of a high school. This is where children play. This is where kids walk to school, and they walk right past it every day. So it's really just something devastating is just waiting to happen here in terms of like the students, and the residents on the streets are already feeling it. So we're really nervous about the students. We think if the parents were aware that that there were like a high concentration of criminals, as the region admits, and as the Waterloo Regional Police admits that there's a high concentration of criminals there, that the parents would be absolutely astonished that they wouldn't want it there as well. So it's really the worst location in the world to put a homeless shelter. We think everybody would agree, and that's why we've set up a petition.
Wendy, I know neighbors are united on this because of what you have seen happening in the neighborhood. Now the petition is there. Have you talked about next steps? I mean, where do you go from here as a neighborhood?
Do you want to speak to that, Eric? We've had the meetings at Eric's house. Like, we actually met with 4 police, someone from the council, and they addressed our concerns. They said that they're daily at the shelter, and they feel that it should never have been put in this place as well on the grounds of the high school, and also with regards to the neighborhood. So we have them supporting us. The police said that they were going to do extra police checks at night across from the shelter for us. So do you want to go further, Eric, on that, about the meeting that day?
Sure can. So sorry, Mike, what precisely was the question?
Just wondering like where you're going from here. So following that meeting, you've got, police involved, you've got municipal officials involved, you started this petition. Just as a neighborhood, where do you think you can go next, for example?
Okay, well, I must say that we do feel that our needs are not being met fully in terms of feeling safe on our own street. Things have gotten a little bit better now that we've connected with the police, let's say. In terms of elected officials, our city councillor doesn't fully support us, is what we're feeling. That being said, our regional councillor, we did meet with Colleen James, and we have to say we are fans of her now that we've met her. She does seem to be very attentive to the situation. And I must say also that homeless shelters in our region is a regional jurisdiction. So it's really the region that's going to make final decisions as to where it can be located and how temporary this shelter can be. So at least on those lines, Colleen is listening. It sounds like she's working at it. Next step for us is to try to get all of the parents on board to get their voices heard as well. So we have a petition started. Anybody can sign on change.org/move-shelter. We would appreciate anybody who feels like we do that having a men's homeless shelter where drug use is taking place in the same area as a high school where children play and learn is a bad idea. We hope that they also sign on, even if you're not part of our area or part of our street. As long as you feel like this is a serious matter, please sign on to our petition. We'd really appreciate it.
I really appreciate the both of you making time for our show today and sharing the story of what's happening in your neighborhood. Thank you very much for being here.
Mike, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Wendy McGrattan, Eric Lease joining us on the program. They live in the Stirling and Cortland area near to the former Edith McIntosh Child Care Centre, which is now, since 2023, a quote-unquote temporary shelter, men's shelter for those experiencing homelessness. And I don't need to rehash what you just heard. These are not unfamiliar concerns in neighborhoods where shelters are present. I'll remind you, a Better Tent City, when it was on private property at the former Lot 42, when the late Ron Doyle was still with us and made accommodation for it on Ardelt. And after Ron's passing and the sale of that property, the Better Tent City was temporarily relocated to a snow yard on Battler Road in the Huron area of Kitchener. Do you remember? And neighbors had similar stories to those we are hearing now from Eric and Wendy. And then a Better Tent City found its new and still home back on Ardelt on property owned by the regional Waterloo Regional Public School Board offices. And in that area, there is not a lot of, or it's not too near, residential neighborhoods. Now we look at the shelter that had been in place at the Schwaben Club, the former Schwaben Club in Kitchener, and the experiences of folks living in the Rockway neighborhood. We documented them. We talked about them. I told you that meeting that I attended to hear neighbors' concerns. And that shelter at the former Schwaben closes, comes to Edith McIntosh, and we're seeing a repeat of those same concerns. Now it's just been shifted to a new neighborhood. My heart absolutely goes out to these folks who find themselves in the place where they need to rely on a shelter for just that, to get a roof over their heads, who are addicted to substances that they can't shake and the hardships that they are enduring. And conversations like this suggest that we have to find a place for them as far away from us, if you will, as we can. It honestly hurts me to think about that, because these are human beings. At the same time, how can you not feel for people like Wendy and Eric and their neighbors who are experiencing this feeling of unease in their own neighborhood? Taking out the garbage in the evening is something that gives them pause. And that's not how we want our neighborhoods to operate in the city, is it? So do we need to establish some sort of zoning that says shelters can only be X meters or Y meters from schools and or residential neighborhoods? Maybe this is a direction we have to go. And then how we find those spaces, I'm not quite sure, but I would love to get your thoughts on it. Give me a call and let me know on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Something devastating is just waiting to happen here in terms of like the students, and the residents on the streets are already feeling it. So we're really nervous about the students. We think if the parents were aware that there were like a high concentration of criminals, as the region admits, that the parents would be absolutely astonished that they wouldn't want it there as well. So it's really the worst location in the world to put a homeless shelter. We think everybody would agree, and that's why we've set up a petition.
Eric Reese lives in the Stirling Avenue neighborhood near the former Edith McIntosh Child Care Center, which has become a men's shelter. The region relocated residents from a former shelter at the former Schwaben Club in 2023 to the former Edith McIntosh Child Care Center on Stirling, next to Cameron Heights High School and near Cortland Avenue. Eric joined us along with his neighbor Wendy McGrattan, who talk about cars being keyed, bullet holes being discovered in windows, strangers being found in backyards, in hot tubs, etc., noise in the middle of the night, and the list goes on. Perhaps even the high school outdoor area at Cameron Heights having to be swept for drug paraphernalia before students can take their phys ed classes. These are the concerns that are being raised. The neighborhood has met with regional police, municipal councillors, both city and regional. They've talked to all levels of government that they can reach, and they have started a petition asking that there be some parameters placed around where a shelter can be located. And I can't help but think of the city of Chatham. Was it Sarnia? I think it was Chatham. Forgive me, but somewhere southwest of here. And they had, past tense, a bylaw in place that prevented encampments within 100 meters of, I believe it was businesses, maybe residences, whatever the case was. There was a 100-meter parameter in their bylaw, and the mayor stepped in and removed that parameter because he said, with the parameters the way they are right now, encampments can't be established anywhere. And so I was musing before the break, if we put parameters around where a shelter can be, might we end up saying, without saying it, shelters can't be anywhere, right? Because it's too close to this or it's too close to that. And these are the challenges. These are the struggles that communities are facing today. 519-570-2545, star 570, or 1-800-570-5715. Andre, good morning.
Morning, Mike. Thank you for this segment. It touches right in the heart because, you like you said it perfectly. You have to look at both sides of this. And what's sad, but it can be fixed. It's when it's going to be fixed. And this is what makes me really upset, is knowing that some people are living like that, and the other people, very disrespectful. They're high on drugs, so, you can't say, oh, yeah, they're high on drugs. It's understandable. No, this can be prevented. I always believe in a transitional home where it's a magnet door. They go out, they sign. You have to be instructive of what you do when you go out. There have to be guidance. There have to be limitations. So we need a building with support and different level of all these people. To me, it's just a when.
You know what, Andre? I think you're onto something there. Transitional or supportive housing, and the when strikes right at the heart of something that's been frustrating the ever-loving HE double hockey sticks out of me lately, because I know it sounds defeatist, and I do apologize for that, but I don't see us getting there. I really don't. If you consider all that has to happen, the partners that need to come together, beginning with just the government partners at all levels, municipal, provincial, and federal, to get the funding in place, to get the strategy in place. I can't imagine. We get paralysis by analysis on these things. We know what's needed on the ground, and our inability to get there or to accomplish big things recently has got me incredibly frustrated. So I think, to Andre's point, we recognize, we know the answer. We know the need, the dire need. It's an urgent need for transitional supportive housing, right? Rehab facilities, beds available for people that want to get and need to get sober. But in order to create all of that space, the effort that has to be put in, I just don't see us getting there, certainly not anytime soon. So in the meantime, Wendy and Eric and their neighbors in the Stirling and Cortland area have to continue living in these conditions. And so too, let's be honest, the folks in the shelter living the way that they're living in inadequate spaces. It's a mess. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Having wrapped up the final long weekend of summer with the Labor Day weekend just passed, we find ourselves on the first Tuesday of the month. It's not a back-to-school day. We're putting that off until tomorrow, as today is a PD day. But the first Tuesday of every month means a couple of things on this show. One of those things is Ask the Chief, when we are joined by Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell and Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, who heads up our Traffic Services Unit. You can have your policing questions answered by these police leaders on the first Tuesday of every month between 11 and noon. So about 30 minutes from now, we'll start getting to your policing questions today. One of the other things we do on the first Tuesday of every month is shine a brighter light on one of the tech companies in our community. It's appropriately called the Tuesday Tech Spotlight. And today we take a look at Mirsi Robotics. Its CEO and co-founder is Tarek Rahim, and he joins us to talk about it. Tarek, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to John Sticks. He's, I think you may know him. He says hi.
Oh my gosh, how is he doing?
He's doing very well.
I'm glad to hear that. Right back to John, too. Thanks for sharing that, Tarek. I appreciate it. Let's talk Mirsi Robotics. How did you get into robotics?
Well, my founder and I both had aging family members who required some level of care. And we were both just passionate electronics engineers and hardware engineers. And the year was 2017, and we knew that robotics was going to be the future. And we wanted to develop a solution that could solve the access to care issue. So back then, AI was nowhere near as advanced as it is today. So the intention was to give human caregivers the ability to teleport into senior homes through these humanoid avatars to check up on them, offer care services, do some tasks around the house, and provide a little bit of companionship, and then move on to the next patient. So that's where we got our start, and we've evolved into other industries. Turns out that market was a little difficult to get into at the time, but now it's something we're reevaluating. So yeah, we started with the mission to help people, basically.
You mentioned the advances in artificial intelligence, and that's one of the things I was thinking about too, having founded in 2017, and here we are 8 years later, and just the explosion in the AI realm, I would think means you have seen a fair bit of change in robotics over just these past 8 years.
Oh, absolutely. It's AI has gotten so advanced. It's not going to be long before we have robotic caregivers at home that are, cooking meals, doing laundry, making sure that, we're taking our medications and eating healthy. And it's coming a lot sooner than people realize. I'd say it's about 10 years off before we start seeing them in homes.
Sure. And you at Mirsi Robotics are just one of two major companies in this country who are currently designing and assembling what are known as humanoid robots. What's a humanoid robot?
So a humanoid robot is one that replicates the human form. They're not meant to be ultra lifelike with, fake skin and hair. They're just meant to have the reach, mobility, and dexterity that a human would have. And this lets them interact with the world like humans do, because the environments and objects that surround us are built by humans for human interaction. So, in theory, these can do all the tasks that a human can do, such as, cooking meals, doing laundry, household stuff, as well as workplace tasks.
So what might be some of the workplace tasks that humanoid robots are able to do on the part of us mere mortals?
So right now we are addressing remote or hazardous work sites, and our robots are designed to transport skilled laborers into those workplaces. So this would include nuclear power plants, water treatment plants, oil and gas control rooms, electrical substation, and any other work site that's difficult to access or dangerous for humans to be in. In these applications, the robots are being embodied by qualified human operators to perform high-skill tasks. And eventually, the robots will have some autonomous functionality to perform the repetitive and physically demanding jobs that people really shouldn't be doing.
I think we can all understand the tremendous benefits and applications, particularly in these areas that are really remote, the dangerous areas, et cetera, where robots might be able to do the work. But how do you respond, Tarek, to people's concerns maybe that, the robots are taking the place of humans in some industries?
I don't think that's really gonna happen. The major focus will be dangerous, physically demanding jobs that people really shouldn't be doing. It's going to be quite some time before I think they're going to take over the higher skill jobs, but I don't see that as a realistic outcome because the AI isn't quite there, and the machines are better suited for more repetitive tasks.
I mentioned earlier that at Mercy Robotics, you're one of 2 Canadian companies building these humanoid robots, and Mercy gets put on the same level when it comes to this as places like Tesla or Boston Dynamics, for example. What is it that makes your Canadian-made humanoid robots different? What sets you apart from these other global competitors?
That's a good question. So every company is different. Unlike Tesla, we've been developing humanoids for quite a while, much longer than them, and we've gained a really deep expertise on the various approaches one can take to building a robot. Building a robot actually isn't that hard, but doing it well is very difficult. And through our years of experimentation, failures, and iteration, we figured out the optimal design for a humanoid. And when we analyze like Tesla's robot, for example, there are flaws that are in their design that are obvious to us that wouldn't be obvious to the average engineer. Boston Dynamics, on the other hand, they've got decades of deep technical knowledge, but they spent a lot of their years doing fundamental research and not really focusing on a design that was practical for commercialization. So in a nutshell, they were focusing on hydraulic-driven designs, which really aren't scalable. And now they're realizing that electric-driven solutions are the future, and now they're developing those. But even though, we're a small Canadian company, our focus on, building something that could be manufactured, would be practical for customers, has allowed us to have an advantage over these much, much larger American competitors.
Given the pace of change that we've seen, particularly with artificial intelligence, Tarek, where do you see this industry going in even 5 or 10 years?
So I'm confident in 5 years we'll see humanoids in virtually all businesses. I can't imagine an industry that won't leverage them. And even cooler, in 10 years, I think robots will be common in the household. It'll be a lot like when personal computers first came out. Businesses mainly used them to do accounting, spreadsheets, but eventually every home ended up having one. And we're going to see the same happen with humanoids. The prices will come down, and they're going to end up in every household. And that's a future I'm very excited for.
You are based in Cambridge. What made you decide to set up shop in our region?
Well, we actually owe our success to this region. The city of Cambridge, the local business incubators like Communitech, Accelerator Center, and so on, and the local entrepreneurs have provided us the resources and support to launch our company. We absolutely love this region, and we consider it home, and we wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And ultimately, we want to give back to the community that's been so supportive of us.
I know that our local entrepreneurial community, particularly in the tech spaces, is much more collaborative than competitive. And maybe that speaks to John speaking through you to say hi to me. Is that another example of the collaboration with fellow entrepreneurs?
Yes.
Is there an opportunity, Tarek, for us here in Canada to maybe, lead in this growing industry?
I think so. The country is quite supportive. The federal government has been super supportive. However, I think we need to put a greater emphasis that embodied AI is going to be the next major technological transformation. I think they recognize that AI is important, and they are investing heavily in that, but humanoids will be the next evolution of that. And they will very likely surpass the size of the automotive industry. Having the ability to take, the phenomenal intelligence that's in, your modern day ChatGPT, LLM, and put that in a physical body that can do real work in the world is huge. And, we have cutting edge technology being built here, and large amounts of private and public capital are flowing into humanoid companies in the U.S. and China. And I think this is an area that our government should, be more focused on and have an awareness that this is, this is a strategic industry that is worth investigating.
It is it's a fascinating industry, to be sure, and love learning about what's happening right here in our own backyard in the Galt area of Cambridge at Merci Robotics. Tarek, thank you very much for making time for the show today.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Tarek Rahim, CEO, co-founder, Merci Robotics. Within 10 years, those humanoids in your kitchen too. I mean, we all have home computers. We didn't all have them decades ago, but in the next decade, Tarek envisions a future where those humanoid robots are just part of the family. It's your Tuesday Tech Spotlight, taking a look at Merci Robotics this morning on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a milestone anniversary celebration of 25 and 10. 25 years for Lassard House, 10 years for Innisfree House. Together, they are Lassard and Innisfree Hospice. And the fund development coordinator there is Sarah Ainsworth, who joins us this morning to talk about these milestone anniversaries. Sarah, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. I love the work that you all do, the entire team at Lassard and Innisfree. Having had the opportunity to visit in the past, it's just, it's such a great space, and there's such great energy in there, which, maybe we'll just start there. It's something that people might not expect when we think of hospice care, end-of-life care, but the energy and the feeling in those houses is probably not what you'd expect.
No, a lot of people often say, it must be so sad to work there. And while there is sadness, there's a lot of joy and happiness and celebration. Sheila and Val O'Donovan wanted to create a space where people facing life-limiting illnesses could come and live out their final days to the best of their ability. And I think that's what we strive at. We make every day count, and we are doing our best to put smiles on people's faces, celebrate the small and big things. And it's not just a sad place. We have anniversary celebrations, birthday celebrations. We recently fulfilled a major sports fan wish to go see a Toronto Blue Jays game with his family. And those are the things that we do in hospice, that our residents become part of our family and we become part of theirs. And it's just providing them with the individual care, compassionate, and supporting their dignity in their final days, and making a sad time as beautiful as possible and creating lasting memories for them and for us.
It's certainly no small thing to be marking 25 years at Lassard House and 10 at Innisfree House. How do you celebrate such an anniversary, Sarah?
Well, we're excited to go back to an in-person event for the first time in 5 years. So we're hosting an anniversary celebration on Saturday, September 27th at the Galt Country Club. Tickets are $200 a ticket or $1,600 for a table of 8. We have some awesome silent and live auction items, live music, and the best part is 100% of the funds raised are supporting members of our community facing these life-limiting illnesses, and being able to give back to them in their time of need at no cost. There's no cost to come to hospice. While we do receive some government funding, it doesn't cover all of the services that we do. So when somebody comes into our doors, there's never a bill to the family when they're leaving, which is something we're really proud of, and able to honor Sheila and Val O'Donovan's goal of creating that type of space at such a difficult time.
I'm glad you brought that point up as well, Sarah, that the families after this challenging time and the sad end to it, they're not walking out with a big bill. And it's important for us to recognize that, yes, while there is some government funding and granting you might be eligible for, most of what you provide, you are able to provide thanks to funds raised at events just like this.
Absolutely. We're grateful for our community and the support that they show us, as we do have to raise $2 million a year to be able to provide all the additional services. And this anniversary celebration will do just that. And it's paying forward to our neighbors and our partners at a time of need, and just giving them the dignity and the compassion and the support that they need. So we're really grateful that, 100% of these funds raised in any fundraising initiative we do stays local and supports everyone in our community.
You mentioned it's coming up on Saturday, September the 27th at Galt Country Club on Coronation Boulevard in Cambridge. How can we get tickets, Sarah?
If you go to our website at lessardandinnisfree.com, you can purchase tickets there, or you can call the hospice at 519-208-5055 and ask for myself or Kim Fielding, our fundraising assistant, and we can process tickets over the phone as well.
Once again, love the work that you're doing. I wish you nothing but success in the fundraiser coming up later this month. And here's to another 25 and 10 down the road for Lessard and Innisfree.
Thank you so much, and congrats again on your engagement.
Thank you, Sarah. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Sarah Ainsworth, Fund Development Coordinator with Lessard and Innisfree Hospice. Their 25 and 10 anniversary celebration is coming up later this month. 25 years for Lessard House, 10 years for Innisfree. Saturday, September the 27th is the date. It's a $200 ticket or $1,600 for a table of 8. So businesses looking for a way to give back, this would be a way to do it. You're going to love the evening itself, not just the venue at Galt Country Club, which is a great place, but there's going to be live music, 3-course dinner, silent and live auction, as well as some memories and some inspiring words from those whose lives have been touched by the care they received at Lessard and Innisfree. And having had the opportunity in the past to be a part of such celebrations, it really is that. It's very uplifting, very celebratory, not what you would expect considering what we're talking about when it comes to hospice care. But there really is that sense of family, and those families who have benefited from the services provided through Lessard and Innisfree or any other hospice, of course, are always so happy to do something to give back. As you heard Sarah say, about $2 million every year needs to be fundraised so that Lessard and Innisfree can keep doing what they do without giving you a bill on the way out the door. So do consider joining them at the 25 and 10 anniversary celebration on Saturday, the 27th at Galt Country Club. $200 for a ticket or $1,600 for a table of 8. Visit lessardandinnisfree.com for details and to get your tickets. You can even phone them and set it up that way. Details on the website at lessardandinnisfree.com. All right, it is the first Tuesday of the month, the day before kids go back to school. So some tips on that, road safety reminders, and your policing questions to be answered coming up with Ask the Chief on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You know, this song is a holdover from the former chief. I think Mark Crowell, regional police chief, you might, if you want to have your own introductory piece of music. We can arrange that at some point if you'd like.
I was just waiting for you to ask. So
Which only took me 3 years. I don't know. The offer is extended, sir. And if you ever wish to, or you just keep doing things the old-fashioned way, like whatever. But thanks for being here as always.
It's an honor. Thanks, Mike.
First Tuesday of every month, and here we are already into September. Scott Griffiths, who heads the Traffic Services Unit, is with us as well. Good morning to you, Scott.
And to you, Mike. And I can tell you the chief has a wonderful singing voice. So if you want to record something...
Oh, even better. So not just a song of his choice, but he can sing it.
Absolutely.
Good to know. We'll get our best producers on the case. Okay, this is an opportunity, and I know you know because you're already lining up on the phones, which is great. You can have your policing questions answered by Chief Crowell, Staff Griffiths. We want to get to some business, though, too, that I think is important, and these are probably things that are on your mind as well. So, Mark, we'll start with you and the LCBO robbery that got so much attention about a week ago. I mean, what's it like getting a call from the premier about something that's going on in our community? But this was a big news story.
It was, and it speaks to a larger trend that we're concerned about here locally, but also I know chiefs across the province. And really, just to take listeners back, it was on Saturday, August 23rd. 6 males entered into an LCBO on Pioneer Drive, and it was about $8,000 worth of product stolen from the shelves. I think what caught the most attention was it was just brazen, no masks. They knew they were being recorded, and they didn't seem too concerned about it, fled in a vehicle. And we're continuing to investigate. I can tell you we're absolutely dedicated to solving this and identifying them and holding them accountable. But the issue is this is organized retail theft, and it adds up to billions of dollars. I mean, when you total this across the country, could be liquor, tools, electronics, perfume, personal care items. There are organized crime groups that are coordinated, and they're jumping from jurisdiction to another. And this is something that we will continue to combat and pay closer attention to. But there's complexities to it.
I don't want to paraphrase the premier too much here, but something just seems amiss here, Mark. Mm-hmm. When you talk about the brazen nature of this, the fact that it's billions of dollars overall because this is happening in all kinds of communities, but I would never imagine doing something so brazen while being recorded. I mean, is this speaking to a bigger issue? Are there criminal code changes that need to be made? Like, how do we explain this?
Yeah, I think you're hitting all the right notes and why it's offensive to us as police leaders, but to citizens, and it's unacceptable in every form. There are things that we've seen evolve over time. If you look at jewelry store thefts and pharmacy thefts, bank thefts, technology, policy, and approaches and increasing security, there's been an evolution to all of that. And we don't want to come to a point where everything is behind, closed glass and so on. I've been in some communities across North America where there's no products on the shelves. I mean, you have to, get customer service to obtain some products. So we don't want to get to that point. We have a role to play, but we're also working with the Canadian Retail Council, local organizations, with the LCBO in particular. So there's a in-store issue. You might recall that last year the province tried a pilot where they were looking at ID entry opportunities. There's also a point of entry security provision that could be different or similar. So these are the conversations that are important. It's all very disappointing, though, because I think to this point in our lives, we've enjoyed, relatively easy retail experience where people walk into a store and it's just understood that things are safe and you shouldn't have to expect this sort of thing to happen. So I can tell you that from across Ontario, chiefs are committed to upping our game when it comes to the coordination of enforcement, prosecution, and those relationships that we require to make things work. There's work to be done here. Yeah.
One of the other big stories in our community, we learned last week of a shooting at a motel in Kitchener, Weber and Kinsey area. What can you tell us, Mark, about what transpired there, where the investigation is at?
Yeah, so this one was at the Weber Street Inn, and so this was something we were quick to respond. A male was shot multiple times, and our responding officers did an amazing job with emergency first aid, applying tourniquets. And we were there, and 2 suspects were arrested right away. Something like this, though, a targeted shooting in a localized area like that, took us multiple days to do various search warrants into different rooms. Oftentimes, circumstances like this involve complex relationships, often drug trafficking as the root to most of these types of incidents. So we had various units responding. We're continuing to investigate. Where we are this year is gun violence is still our number one focal area for crime suppression. So that's the 13th shooting incident of this year. At this point last year, we had 17 shooting incidents. So we are seeing a year-over-year difference. And as I've said before, the last 3 years, we've had an average of 21 shooting incidents per year. And the reason why this is our number one concern, if we look at the homicides last year, 4 of the 5 homicides involved firearms. And in the commission of many offenses, we're seeing real and replica firearms. To this point this year, we've yet to have a homicide in Waterloo Region. That's a staggering statistic, and we can't attribute anything to it until we see these trends over time. But gun violence is our number one priority, and we will continue to make every effort to stop it.
What strategies do we use in order to stop that number one priority?
Yeah, so we're very diligent in trying to understand exactly who is in our community. When I mentioned drug trafficking, we have dedicated gun and gang and drugs and firearms units that are trying to understand who the players are, what the transactions are, what the risk levels are. And when we're focusing on where we're putting our efforts, it is on just those prolific offenders and these offenses. So we're often making major seizures of drugs, guns with known people. Where it's a challenge and where we continue to grow our network of intelligence and enforcement focus is where we're dealing with people that slide in and out of Waterloo Region and vice versa. And so that's the ongoing work that we have with our public safety partners right across the province, right across the country, is to know exactly what's happening from a trafficking standpoint and to understand where those risks are. We're doing really good work across the Greater Toronto and Southern Ontario area where you've seen gun violence drop, and this is right across North America. There's a lot of work happening at the borders and cross-collaboration with investigations, and we'll continue to try to keep that number down to zero.
All right, Scott, let's slide it over to your area in traffic services, this being the day before school starts following that Labor Day weekend. What kind of operational plan is in place for traffic services on Back to School Day tomorrow?
Well, very much is a big week for my unit and for other members of our monthly enforcement teams. We've instituted our Back to School plan for this week. So we're going to have a very visible presence in school zones in the communities where students are going to be gathering with my traffic services units, all hands on deck, as well as our monthly enforcement team and our neighborhood policing officers, so our local patrol officers as well. It's really a concerted effort, an organized effort for us to get out increased visibility and to really remind people that back to school changes a lot of things about the flow of traffic, about the flow of pedestrians, and about how we maneuver through these neighborhoods and maneuver through our community.
I think, we talk about this annually, but it's a worthwhile reminder because over the summer, you nail it. The traffic patterns change, the patterns in neighborhoods change. And now not only will those patterns revert to what they were back in April and May last year, but the kids on the streets, and especially with just going back to school, they might not exactly be thinking about where they're crossing or how they're getting around. They're focused on school, and we have to be aware of them.
Absolutely. So we have to make sure that we remember that we have our very excellent school bus drivers. We have our awesome crossing guards who are out. But we also have to remind all of our pedestrians, our parents, our kids, our cyclists. We have so many different types of mobility in this region. We have LRT, we have buses, electric mobility, so on and so forth. We need to make sure that we remind everybody that they need to have a lot of visibility. They need to be very aware of their surroundings, and they need to be conscious of the fact that these buses are back out there again. Crossing guards will be stepping out into intersections, and those are critical points where we want to avoid collisions. We want to ensure that people can get across and get through to their school safely and back home again.
Good reminder as we head back to school tomorrow and everything that comes with it. Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths heads up the Traffic Services Unit with Regional Police. Chief Mark Crowell in studio with us as well. We'll get to your calls and questions on Ask the Chief next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On the first Tuesday of every month between 11 and noon, we are joined in studio by Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths. He heads up the Traffic Services Unit, and they take your questions. So if you've got a policing question, our police leaders are here to answer them. I think you know the numbers, but I'll remind you just in case. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Let's get to the phones, and Doug will start us off. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Mike. I have a question for the chief. With all the break-ins, the shootings, the stabbings, the assaults, it always comes down from one of the two statements from WRP is there's no issues to worry about. Suspects are known to each other, or it was a targeted issue. You know, my concern is if it's a targeted issue, and let's say they shoot the husband, what makes us think they won't come back after the wife or something? Everything comes down to these two statements from WRP.
All right, Doug, appreciate that question. And Mark.
Good morning, Doug. Thanks very much. It's good feedback, and we're always trying to get the messaging right. And what we're trying to convey when we say, people known to each other or a targeted incident, we're trying to say it wasn't random. It wasn't something that just happened between strangers. And also, when it's targeted, we often are able, what we're trying to say is we know the people involved, and whether they're apprehended, arrested, or outstanding, we have means to try and find out who they are to bring it to a resolution. But there's nothing to say, Doug, that we're satisfied that, everybody is safe and everything is fine. Often it's not. And so when we have, say, a targeted shooting, there's still a ripple effect. And even if it takes us hours or sometimes days to locate, apprehend, and arrest somebody, there's still work to be done, and there's still a risk to public safety. So we're trying to communicate as effectively as we can and as quickly as we can so that people know, am I safe to go outside my home? Am I safe to travel to work? If it happened in my neighborhood or on my street, what kind of risk does that pose to me? But Doug, it's great feedback. Believe it or not, we have this conversation all the time when we're doing our messaging, and we know that attention spans are short and people need the quickest information possible, but it's always good feedback to know that it leaves a lingering feeling of lack of safety in the community, and I appreciate the call and the feedback.
And I guess it's the balance we're trying to strike when we're communicating what's happening. I know that we have lockdowns at schools at times, or shelter in place at a school or in a neighborhood. And really, I suspect what we're trying to strike here is the balance between, what police know and not unnecessarily alarming the entire community.
It's exactly right. And we also know when I mentioned before about, circles of trafficking or relationships between people in organized crime or whatever it is, if there's an act of violence, even if there's somebody is victimized, there's sometimes retribution. And to Doug's point, things that carry on after the fact. So we're very mindful of that, and that's why we want to intervene and make our best efforts as quickly as we can. Sometimes, as we've talked about on the show before, these investigations can take months to be resolved, especially if the worst has happened, such as a homicide or a tragic shooting and level of injury. So, Doug, great feedback, but I mean, it is a balance we're trying to strike all the time, is effective messaging to ensure that people can quickly know exactly what's happened and try and get on with their lives, knowing that we're doing that work in the background.
All right, Doug, appreciate the question. It's a good one to get us started. Let's go next to Wilf. Good morning, Wilf.
Hey, Mike, thanks for taking my call. I got a question for the chief. Of the confiscated guns you've gathered, do you know the source of origin? Did they come from the U.S.? Is there a database where you upload where the guns come from? And then what's happening after that fact? Thanks.
Thanks, Wolf. Great question. So typically, I mean, I don't have the absolute statistic, but I would say locally and right across Canada, most police services and chiefs would say that about 90% of our confiscated weapons are coming from the U.S. So, I mean, we know that illegal, we would call them crime guns, are typically coming across the border. It could be through trucks or boats or train, all kinds of transit. We know that even there's been drone drops of drugs and guns, that are occurring increasingly. So there's points of entry and ports of entry that we're trying to solidify that. And also, we've talked about on this show before, is there's emerging ways that guns are being assembled. So ghost guns, or people assembling guns through different parts where they're not identified, through traditional serial numbers, and also 3D printed guns. So to your absolute question, that's our understanding, is the vast majority are coming across the border. And we know also that guns are being handed through different individuals, through different crimes as well. So that means that about 10% of guns used in the commission of offenses, though, are registered firearms. When we look at suicides, traditionally domestic violence-related homicides, those types of offenses are using sometimes long guns or legally registered firearms, and stolen firearms as well. We do have break-ins where legally registered firearms are taken as well. So from a policing standpoint, as much as there are enthusiasts and collectors and law-abiding citizens out there, we are seeing more weapons than ever, and we are supportive of legislation that is looking to reduce as many crime guns from coming into this country and restricting the use broadly in society, because that's keeping us safe, and it's also helping to keep our citizens safe.
All right. Wilf, another great question, and I loved how you got right to it. Let's go next to Paul. Good morning, Paul. You're on Ask the Chief.
Good morning. I hope everyone's doing well today. A couple of weeks ago, the hot topics on talk radio, including this show and various other ones that I listened to, there was two hot topics. One was stand your ground, and the other was the fact that the Liberal government is pushing to go ahead with the confiscation of legally owned firearms. I'm 70 years old. If somebody breaks into my home, it's probably going to be a younger person. They're probably going to be a lot healthier than me, a lot better physical condition. So what are my limits as to what I can do to protect myself once the Liberal government seizes all legally owned firearms? And
surely you don't mean you want to shoot them, Paul.
No.
Okay.
No, but I want to know what the limits are.
Okay, that's a fair question, and I think one that you have asked in the past on this, but it is still something very much in the news, Mark. We heard Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre make a statement with that regard, looking for some criminal code amendments. But what should people know about the limits that they are restricted by if somebody breaks into their home?
Thanks, Paul. And I think we have just at a high level talked about this before, but it is topical. I think it's important for us to always be evaluating the circumstances. Essentially, it comes down to the common advice about it depends. Every situation is so specific. People have a right to defend themselves, their property. I think what has emerged in the public forum is anything excessive to be accepted. And so whether there's to be legislative changes, I think it's a really good conversation and debate right now. People have a right to defend and stand their ground, their families themselves, especially if somebody's broken into the house. But when it comes to the point of excessive violence in response, it has to be proportionate to the threat and also proportionate to the circumstances in terms of what force has been used upon somebody. So, I mean, a lot of this is very nuanced, and I'm sure that our legislators across the country will continue to evaluate that. Paul, when it comes to the issues of firearms, I was just in the United States last week. I was at a conference with chiefs from right across the U.S., and I'll give you a comparison of a community that's a little smaller than us, Kansas City, Missouri. Population of 516,000. Last year, they had 144 homicides, 571 shootings. And I just talked to Mike about the circumstances here. We're having about 21 shootings a year and 0 homicides in 2025. So I'll ask you, what type of society do you want to live in? And I can tell you where I want to live. I'm very proud to live here. And I think that the laws of this land continue to evolve. But as a community, we get to decide what we restrict and what we prohibit and also what we allow. And that's an ongoing conversation. But very proud to be a Canadian, very proud to be from Marley Region.
Those are staggering differences between like-sized communities here and in the United States. Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, he heads up the Traffic Services Unit. They are in studio with us, as they are on the first Tuesday of every month between 11 and noon. This is Ask the Chief on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Regional Police will receive your message loud and clear during this hour. First Tuesday of every month from 11 until noon, you can have your policing questions answered. In studio with Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell and Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths. He heads up our Traffic Services Unit. And your calls, we'll get right back to them. Jake is with us. Jake, good morning.
Gentlemen, how are you now?
We're good, and you?
Not bad, thanks. So over the weekend, there was an unfortunate incident. Now, the rumor is somebody was hit on an e-bike right out beside the Superstore on Queens Boulevard, and apparently that person has now passed. Now, my question is when will we start to see police enforcing helmets, and when will we start advocating for that as well?
All right, Jake, thanks for the question. Scott.
Jake, thanks for the call. And yes, you're correct. Indeed, on this weekend, we had an incident just outside the Supercenter on Queens Boulevard and Highland Road, where a gentleman on a electric unicycle was struck by a motor vehicle and has unfortunately succumbed to their injuries. Jake raises a really interesting question and a really big topic that seems to be coming up in the media here recently about the different types of mobility devices, the different types of e-bikes, e-kick scooters, and things like that that are now have just sort of exploded into onto our roadways and sidewalks. And the issue is that we now have to, pedestrians, cyclists, motorists, now have to share the road with additional types of mobility. And we are trying to address all of those issues when it comes to education, to making sure that people know the device that they're using, where they should be using it, what safety equipment they should be using, and what their responsibilities are, as well as motorists and cyclists and pedestrians. But it is inherent upon everybody here to realize that we have now a multitude of different devices, a multitude of different things that we are having to share the roadway with, and that is inherent upon them. And we do enforcement when possible to make sure that the folks who are riding these new types of mobilities are aware of their responsibilities, and if there is an enforceable act, that we are going to enforce that. Obviously, whenever you have a motorized vehicle, I would say you should be wearing a helmet under every circumstance, because the ability to accelerate yourself beyond walking speed or running speed has become obviously very possible.
You said unicycle, Scott?
That's correct.
Holy Hannah. So that's a new one for me, but you're absolutely right when you talk about this issue being in the media. We had a gentleman who appeared before Regional Council expressing concerns. And when you talked earlier about the different kinds of mobility devices that are on the roads for people to get around these days, when we were talking about back to school, I did want to ask you about this, and I'm glad you got into it. I know that recently Toronto Police did a flat-out crackdown where officers were actively monitoring and enforcing. Is that in the offing here in the region by any chance?
Absolutely. We're looking into that in the sense that we now have university students back to school. So we have our Neuron Mobility, our shareables that are up in the uptown cores and in the downtowns and in the school areas, as well as we have other mobility devices. So, for example, there are types of mobility devices for persons with physical challenges that no longer resemble just a scooter. They've got doors, they've got a windshield, they've got a roof, but they are essentially designed for as a mobility aid. So we have to look at these different devices and look at what the responsibilities are, and we want to encourage safety for everybody, and we want to make sure that everyone's able to share that. But if you look at the incident of like the scooters in Uptown Waterloo, we're definitely going to be, as Safe Semester rolls into September, we're looking at taking the initiative and making sure that these riders who are adopting or sometimes using these devices for the first time are aware of what their responsibilities are, how they should be treated, and what sort of safety equipment they should be wearing.
Glad to hear that. And Mayor Jake, thanks for opening that can of worms, because it's a big one to be sure. Back to the phones. Bonnie, good morning.
Yes, I would like to ask the chief. Recently, stats came out on Ontario, and Waterloo Region was the fourth highest in crime rate above Milton, Toronto area, and with the least amount of police employees. And I would like him to respond to that and where Waterloo Region should go in the future.
All right, Bonnie, thank you very much for that, Chief.
Thanks, Bonnie, and you're paying close attention, and this will always be a topic of consideration when it comes to budget season. So heading into the next couple months, we'll be using some of that data to explain to our board and also our regional council and community exactly where we are with crime rates, with our growing population, and then our police to population ratio. And so we have been making the case for some time that we're still a little behind. When we look at our metrics for cases per officer, case clearance data, the number of criminal offenses per officer per resident, they are higher in this region. There are some silver lining to some of it. We know that we have increased reporting for things like domestic violence, sexual violence, human trafficking, which speaks to how robust some of our support systems are. Even hate crimes, high reporting in this region. But we still have work to do to respond to the pressing needs when people call 911, when people are asking for help, when we need to expedite some of these violent occurrences and investigations. There's work to do to us to continue to grow to the demands of this community. And we really want to ensure that this is something that is done, with the wishes of this community. Look at the economy, look at the challenges that we have. When we put forward a business case, we want it to be based on evidence and also with the perceptions of people feeling safe. So it's not just a police conversation, it's an all of community conversation to say what resources do we have here. And so, Bonnie, you're right on target with exactly the conversations we'll be advancing in the months to come. And we still have some work to do. There were some years between 2012 and 2018 where we did not grow at all. As a police service, there were zero additions to our police service. So we're still now catching up to some of our comparators across the province. And I'm very proud to continue to make the case for increased growth.
All right, Bonnie, that's a great question. I had those stats on my list of things to talk to the chief about today, too. So I think next time I need a day off, I'm just going to call Bonnie. She's clearly capable of helping out on the show. Back to the phones. John, you are on Ask the Chief. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. I guess specifically my question is related to the chief. At conventions or meetings of police chiefs, either across the province or across the country, Chief, I was wondering how often does the subject of repeat offenders and offenders who are, I guess, basically out on bail and they commit crimes while on bail, and I'm just wondering how often that subject is brought up, and if you feel that the government officials are actually listening to the front line officers, because in my eyes, I don't think the government is, and I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Thanks, John. Again, you're paying close attention to the most topical issues. I can say that it's probably the number one issue from a Canadian and an Ontario Association of Chiefs level when we're doing advocacy for more judicial resources. When you mentioned repeat offenders, it's an ongoing issue of the capacity of the criminal justice system, of our incarceration situation across the country, where police are doing a really good job at, for the most part, responding, arresting people, but that cycle that occurs where people are not being held in custody or they're released early. I know that the province of Ontario is looking at this from a number of different perspectives, from looking at increasing jail capacity across the province, looking at continuing to increase judicial criminal justice capacity, and we're making the case here. So I could go talking about this for hours, but we have even our own justice modernization strategy for the Waterloo Regional Police to ensure that the work that we're doing is as efficient as it can be. We're dealing with the most pressing offenses of violence and victimization, and that we're doing our part from an investigation and court disclosure standpoint. We've made some recent advocacy requests for something called a community justice center in this region. So much of our work falls to addiction, mental health, homelessness related issues. And so there's streams of the extreme violence and that sort of stuff. But there's also chances for us to divert some of the lower concern, lower victimization offenses, to other forms of resolution in our community. So it's everything all at once. And John, you're right on the money. This is something we need to improve and invest in so that we get the outcomes that we need. And that will hopefully clear some of the clutter in the system to get us the better outcomes that we all deserve.
Great questions so far today with Ask the Chief, which continues. Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths with us in studio. Phil, we'll get to your question right after this break on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On the first Tuesday of every month from 11 until noon, we're joined in studio by Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths. He heads our Traffic Services Unit, and they take your questions directly during Ask the Chief. We go next to Phil. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Chief. Good morning, staff.
Good morning, Phil. Phil.
It's hard to believe it's come around again, but in 3 weeks is the Canadian Police Memorial Service in Ottawa. Front lawn, Parliament buildings for that ceremony. And word on the street is Waterloo Regional Police are in charge of the weather for that weekend.
Well, we'd love to control it here in Waterloo Region with homecoming and also in Ottawa as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just mentioned that to you, and maybe you can just tell the audience briefly what it's all about. It's its 47th year. Even though I've been well retired, I still attend, but I wear a different shoulder flash.
Well, thanks, Phil. It is really touching that you've called in to raise this, because it is something that's important to us and right across Canada. So every year, the last weekend in September, there's the Canadian Police Memorial that recognizes police and peace officers that have paid that ultimate sacrifices. And so we gather on Parliament Hill. It's always interesting. There's usually an amazing march of officers from across the country, many from Ontario, and it's a really touching ceremony where they do a roll call of fallen officers and also recognize those who have passed in this year. And right behind Parliament Hill, there's a memorial that is for the Canadian Police and Peace Officers that every time I'm in Ottawa, I go for a morning jog and I go up behind the Parliament Hill and run past it. And it just reminds us all that there's a legacy of strong law enforcement and police history in this country, and it's a time where we gather across the country and across the province in Ottawa. It's a challenge for Waterloo Regional Police to make the trek, though, because we're dealing with homecoming on that same weekend. But Scott and his traffic team often go down in their motorcycles. They're part of it, and we're very proud to be there every year with often our chorus, our band, and a contingent of our officers.
All right, so we want sunshine in Ottawa and torrential rain in Waterloo Region on that weekend. That's all we're asking for, Mother Nature. Yeah. Glenn, you're next on Ask the Chief. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I have a question for the chief. I was wondering why, when there is an existential threat to Canadian sovereignty by that person in the White House, that the chief would choose to go to the United States and not go remotely. I think he owes an apology as a leader of the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. And so this was called the Safety of Our Cities Conference. It's a joint Canadian-American police law enforcement conference. And I'll be issuing no apology, and I make no apologies for joining with law enforcement partners from across North America. I understand from a travel standpoint that may be contentious for you, but to join with police leaders to talk and to learn and to share our best practices to advance public safety is something that I and we are committed to. And I think it's really important for the public to know that despite all of the nonsense, the rhetoric, the politics that swirl from jurisdiction, that we stand in lockstep with our American law enforcement partners to keep our communities safe. And I was very proud to be there as a Canadian to share and to learn. And we're looking at administering some best practices from the United States where they do get it right. And there's things that we can learn and share across the border. So no apology, Glenn, but thanks for the call.
All right, Glenn, appreciate it. Let's squeeze in one more before we're done taking calls today. Mike, you get the last word.
Mike, this may not be for this segment, but for next month, I'd like to understand, because
you're planning ahead already.
Waterloo Regional Police Service has been rated pretty low on crime rates, the ability to solve crimes in a bunch of surveys. I'd like to understand, maybe for next time, what the chief and what the police services board are going to do to address that. Because we're rated pretty low across Ontario right now.
Thanks, Mike. And Bonnie, I think, touched on a little bit of that from some StatsCan numbers, but Mark, initial reaction there?
It's a good one. Thanks for the call, and I think it's important feedback. So we've just, in response to the most recent StatsCan data, we showed we've made some significant improvements for case clearance and the strides we've made on reduction of crime. And that's part of the story here when we look at resourcing, is to say, as I just told Bonnie, I feel that we've underinvested in police resources in this region, and we're continuing to see the effects of that over time. And so when we stand in front of our board and our community at Regional Council to make the case for additional resources, it's exactly what that is the caller's addressing. So in the next few months, and it can be on the show, but we'll certainly be doing it at our board meetings and at Regional Council, we'll be telling the story of outcomes. And this is really for our community to decide, and there'll be no lack of conviction on our part to stand up to say, these are the results, these are the impacts on our officers, and here's what we're seeing in our community in terms of case clearance, crime and impact, and victimization. And it's a really important topic.
Before I let you guys go today, last month, Mark, we talked about the annual backpack challenge that regional police are a part of. Kids are going back to school tomorrow. I know thanks to that challenge, many of them are going back with new backpacks and some supplies tucked within them. But can you give us an update on how things turned out this year for the challenge?
Yeah, our community rose to that challenge, and it was just amazing to see. So in total, over 6,000 backpacks raised, countless thousands of dollars in school supplies and also gift cards. And so we had such an amazing time. We did some gathering of community at our headquarters facilities to distribute, but also joined at community centers across the region. And just to see the smiles, to see the neighborhood associations and the communities come together in different organizations, just an amazing outpouring of generosity. So very proud of the WRPS team that made it happen, but also just so proud of our generous community. And we will see those dividends and those smiles, play out, in terms of the weeks and months to come as kids head back to school.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing, to be sure. And just to draw back the curtain a little bit here, when we do this segment, a lot of times we get into a whole bunch of traffic stuff, and Scott ends up answering most of the questions through our hour together, and there's good-natured banter that he was carrying the load. True or false, Chief? You were going easy on Staff Griffiths today because he's got a busy day tomorrow with the traffic unit.
Yeah, we got to prepare him and the whole traffic team for the amazing work that they're going to do tomorrow and the week ahead.
I didn't waste my time here, Mike. I've got a list of songs for Mark to sing next time. I've been compiling a list right here.
I think that's going to be great. You never know what you're going to hear next month on the first Tuesday of. Let me just do a quick look on the calendar here so we can let you know. That's going to be October the 7th will be our first Tuesday of October. May or may not be a rendition of a song sung by Chief Crowell. But, to the point about tomorrow, Scott, I know you and the entire traffic services unit are geared up for a big day in our region.
Absolutely. And what we want to ask everyone who's out there taking their kids to school, kids walking to school, people driving their cars, please keep your eyes open. Keep your ears, keep the windows down, listen for kids, listen for students, look for the sign, look for the crossing guards, look for the school bus stop bars. Please be conscious of that, because these are the days that we worry about the most. We want to make sure everybody gets to school and gets in class safely and efficiently.
Until October the 7th, when you're next here again, thank you both very much for the time you've given the community.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths heads up the Traffic Services Unit. They join us on the first Tuesday of every month between 11 and noon for Ask the Chief, when you get your policing questions answered. We'll take a break, get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then Talkback begins. You set the agenda, bring the ideas. We'll have the conversation on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room.
Don't talk back.
It is your daily Talkback Hour. And I feel like we are in the episode of Seinfeld where Kramer took over responsibility for a part of, I believe it was the New Jersey Turnpike. Either way, he was responsible for one section of the highway and decided that what that highway really needed was wider lanes with more space, and it led to all kinds of havoc. There's no havoc here, but we do have wider lanes with more space, thanks to some just minor little tweaks we made to the programming here on the station. So lots of opportunity for you to have your voice heard on the topics we discuss, or during this Talkback Hour when you get the chance to start the conversation. It can be a response to something that we've talked about on the show today. Maybe you didn't get time earlier to have your say, or something else entirely. Because if it's important to you, it's important to us, and we want to hear about it on Talkback. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Something I did bring up near the beginning of the show today in my ongoing efforts to provide value to this community beyond just, the tremendous value I clearly bring to the radio station, right? They've kept me around for 18 years. I must be doing something right. But that aside, I thought, and I said before the show today, that I was going to save our region both time and money as they get to work researching what intersections in our region may benefit from a ban on right-hand turns on red lights. And you know what? I'll start it this way. I actually support the ban on right turns on red lights for the simple reason that I believe many of us who drive treat red lights as yield signs if we're going to make a right-hand turn, because you feel like you don't have to stop, right? You forget the stopping part before making the turn. So I would ban right turns on red lights strictly for that reason. Kind of like, this is why we can't have nice things, because we have abused the privilege of the right turn on red. We don't stop first. We just kind of cruise. We might slow down, and then we make that right-hand turn. But where I'm drawing the line, and why I brought this up this morning, was following an article I read over the weekend. Granted, it was out of Ottawa, but it got me thinking about what we're doing here with red lights and right turns at some intersections. And there was a counselor in Ottawa that was talking about how dangerous it was with right turns being allowed on reds, and how people shouldn't be taking their lives into their hands when they walk in the city of Ottawa. And I thought, okay, hang on. Like, we don't need irresponsible rhetoric like that, in my opinion, right? Taking your life into your hands. It's not that bad. Is everything perfectly safe? No. Do you have a guarantee of safety every time you leave your house? Well, I know we want the best, but let's be honest. We live in a growing community with more and more people doing more and more things on sidewalks, on trails, on roads. There is a level of personal responsibility that must be taken for one's own safety. Anyway, I read this article. There was not one single statistic about people that have died, even though the counselor made it clear you're risking life by walking the streets. And then I got to thinking, because she also stated in the article, again, this was Ottawa, but that she had seen a person on a bicycle had been hit, by a vehicle turning right. And that's why we need to ban right turns on red lights. And I just started thinking about it, and I thought, well, wait a minute. If I'm on a bicycle and I get hit by a vehicle turning right on a red, how did that happen? Like, where was I? Because I'm assuming that I'm on the same street as the vehicle that's turning right. If the right-hand turn is the problem, then I got in the way, or the car cut me off turning right. But how could that be? Because if we're both at a red light, then I should be too far behind the car to be in the way. And if the car's turning right on a red, there are no pedestrians crossing that street, because that crosswalk is not available to pedestrians, because that's where the traffic's moving through. So it's possible the bicycle and the rider was on the road crossing through the green light, but that still makes it difficult to understand how the vehicle turning right hit the bicycle. In fact, the bicycle would have hit the car. I'm not saying the car was right. Maybe they only yielded instead of stopping, but the bicycle would have been as visible as any vehicles on the road at the time. I think the real danger, and this is my message to the region of Waterloo as they embark on this research. I understand that we have research that says, more than 50% of pedestrian collisions occur at signalized intersections where turns are happening. But what color is the traffic signal when it happens? And I think you're going to find that the signal is green, because when the light is green and I'm turning right, that's when you're crossing the road exactly where I want to turn. And so I don't know, I really don't know how banning right-hand turns on red lights when there is nobody in the crosswalk, at least not to my right, is going to solve the problem. If they're in the crosswalk in front of me and I run into them in the effort of making my turn, by all means, we've got a problem. But I just, something tells me that's not the case. And the color of the light means an awful lot. That's the data point we should look for. And then we'll find out that these collisions are actually happening on green lights. And then what are we going to do? Ban turns altogether? So maybe we should just be more honest about why we want to ban right turns on reds, like me, because you don't stop at the red light. So I'm taking away your privilege. That's the way I'd do it. With that out of my system, let's go to the phones for Talkback. Mark, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you doing today?
Great, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. Mike, I know the Rangers have a bid in for the Memorial Cup in a couple of years.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if they win that bid, Mike, which I really hope they do, they deserve it, would you be doing the play-by-play?
I hope so. It's 2027. So, yeah, that would mean that I'm still gainfully employed and doing play-by-play next season. I hope so. Absolutely.
Excellent to hear, Mike, because that's the only way it should be.
Well, I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mike.
All right, Mark. Enjoy your day.
You too.
Thank you very much. We had fun at FanFest on Sunday. Boy, oh boy. And by the way, I still don't know who dropped off the beer and the O. Henry bar. I'm sorry. One of my coworkers gave it to me at the end of the broadcast. I didn't see who dropped it off. So if you were the one that brought me 2 cans of Daryl Sittler 10-point lager, thank you. And the O. Henry bar, thank you. I ate the O. Henry bar. I have not yet enjoyed a beer. I didn't drink on site at the broadcast. I would not do that. But I was very grateful because, I like me a wobbly pop, but I have no idea who brought it for me. So if you know, let me know. But I'm very grateful for it nonetheless. Tom, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. First, get rid of all the bike lanes.
All right.
This is not a bike. You never see anybody on the bike.
Well,
lane.
Tom, the bike people will tell you that if you build more bike lanes, more people are going to start riding.
No, they're not. This
Okay.
is still a country. But anyway, my main concern is I hope this country pays attention. Whether you believe in climate change or not, they pay attention to all the burning. Like if it continues like this and we're not doing anything, it's not right.
You're talking about the forest fires again, aren't you?
Big time.
Okay.
And my other thing is whether, like I said, whether you believe in climate change or not, and you have to do that. And I'm not worried about spending all the money in the military because it ain't coming. The guy's taking the country down.
Okay, Mark. Tom, pardon me. Tom has been beating this drum for a while, and he wants us all to pay very close attention to the wildfires. If nothing else. Oh, and by the way, while you're paying attention to the wildfires, please rip out all the bike lanes. There you go. Summation of Tom's call. Kyle, good afternoon.
I agree with you. I think we should keep the. I like the do not right turn on red. It works well on the island of Montreal. Every time I go there, there's been no issues at all. I'll take it one step further. Let's get rid of stop signs and just put yield signs all over the neighborhood like they do in Europe.
Well, but this is the thing. I don't know about that, Kyle. I don't know, but I'm for it.
Do a complete stop. How many?
That's a good point. It's a really good point.
I mean,
yeah.
And I had cousins that came to visit me, and they're like, "Why is there a stop sign in the middle of the neighborhood when there's maybe 2 or 3 cars going by?" Where I live, there's a yield sign. People slow down. They look around, they see what's going on, and then they continue through if they go by. And And I've seen it. They've done it actually in Woolwich there. A couple of the back roads there. There have actually been a few yield signs. They got rid of the stop sign. They put yield signs there. And I understand, it's in the country and all that stuff. But I love it, Mike. It's a fantastic idea. It keeps traffic moving. Because you're already creeping up to see where you're going if there's cars coming by. So there you go. I just want to agree with you and take it one step further. Thanks a lot, my friend.
All right, Kyle. Appreciate that. See, the challenge is, so we agree that you should ban right turns on red lights. But I say we should do that because we have abused the privilege. We're not stopping anymore at the reds. If we still stopped and then carefully and legally made our right-hand turn, that's fine. So in Kyle's example, though, because we treat stop signs as yield signs, I don't want to give in to the bad behavior. What we should do instead is have a big wall come up as soon as you approach the stop sign. So if you don't stop, you're going to smash into the wall. That's the technology we need. But I would just ask you again to think about the intersection when you are driving a vehicle and facing a red light. If you make a right-hand turn at that red light, I fail to see where the pedestrians and or cyclists are that you are allegedly hitting with your right turn on a red light. The danger absolutely is far greater to those pedestrians and those cyclists if the light is green. Because when you make your right-hand turn at a green light, that's when all the people are crossing in that crosswalk you're trying to turn through. Unless I'm missing something, but I don't think that I am. If I am, I know you'll tell me about it on Talkback. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Heather sends an email to Mike at 570news.com, subject line, right turn. My theory is maybe the biker was flying down the sidewalk to the right of the driver with a green light. As the driver had checked and began his turn, the bike flew into the intersection. I've encountered that scenario. Heather, exactly. Because as the driver, you now have the green light. That's when traffic on your right, pedestrians, cyclists, whether they dismount or don't dismount, are going through the crosswalk with the right of way. If the light in front of you is red and you're turning right, ain't nobody supposed to be there. So I'd like to know all of these death-defying collisions or near collisions that are happening if you're the driver and you're facing a red light and you want to make a right turn. I will remind you that you must, by law, come to a stop at the light before you begin your turn. We don't do that very well. But legally, nobody should be in that crosswalk. So I'm trying to figure out why we think banning right turns on red lights is going to somehow save these collisions. The data point that we need to determine here is what color is the light when these right-hand turn collisions are happening. And I will bet you dollars to ding-dang donuts that the lights are green. Sean, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'd like to address a couple of points here. One, it is illegal for a cyclist to cycle in a crosswalk. There's a $110 fine. They are a vehicle legally. They cannot use a crosswalk, even though they do. So, yeah, that person was probably in the crosswalk, and that's why they got hit. Two, the person said they'd never seen anybody use bike lanes. Well, I can tell you exactly why. In the region, we have painted bike lanes, which are unprotected and are useless. You will see cars in them. You will see Tim Horton people lined up in them. You will see delivery vehicles lined up in them. They exist solely so the politicians can say, oh, look, we did something. We don't have proper bike lanes. That's why the cyclists cycle on the sidewalk, because they are dangerous. Sorry, it's just they are there just so they can say they did something.
All right. You know what, Sean? And I was thinking similarly with the banning of right turns on red lights, which I will say again, I support, simply because we, as drivers, don't really stop at those red lights anymore if we're turning right, do we? Admit it. You cruise, you yield, you slow down a bit, and you make your turn. So that, just based on that, I would take the privilege away from you because you have shown that you can't handle it. You abuse it. But I think there's also this idea that now we've done something to improve safety and reduce these collisions. And then you'll find out that the collisions aren't being reduced at all because there's nobody there. The collisions are happening when the light's green. That's the problem. in my opinion. Jim, Farwell's Force member number 138. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And I'm not from Conestoga either.
Okay.
Anyway, in regard to the right turn thing, I think that's a part of something I was thinking about for quite a few years now. They should organize the intersections now to everybody kind of does their thing at one time. Like you would have nothing but left turns from the flow of traffic. No right turns allowed. Pedestrians staying on the curb. Okay? When you get to the straight through part, again, pedestrians staying on the curb. Straight through guys, right-hand turns are allowed. When their turn is finished, no right turn sign goes up again, and then the pedestrians have the right of way. If we don't mix the two together, we shouldn't have any incidents that are coming along. And as far as these mobile units working on our streets, they should be licensed exactly like a licensed driver is, learn how to deal in traffic and things like that. You're a motorcycle driver, right?
I am.
Okay. One of the first things somebody told me about driving a motorcycle is you have to treat yourself as if you're invisible. And the people with these motorized conveniences using our right-of-way or the roadway have to learn the same thing, and they should be licensed, helmeted, and have an insurance. Because if they run into the side of you, and it's their fault for doing so because they're generally passing you on the right-hand sides. So, I don't know. It's a thought. I don't know where you might think, what your opinion might be about it, but if everybody was taking their turn, we wouldn't have that mixture of vehicles and pedestrians in motion in a small area like that at the same time.
All right, Jim. Listen, I appreciate where you're coming from. I think you're kind of onto something there where intersections get treated as like it just first, second, third, you turn left, you turn right, you walk, go again, left turn, right turn, walk, like whatever. And maybe if we separate the road users into their turns, then we eliminate the possibility of turning into somebody else. As for riding a motorcycle, first piece of advice I got was put your head on a swivel. But I really think Jim gets down to something here that's important, because I also received an email from Annie to Mike at 570news.com, and she said, think about it. If you're turning right on a red, you're looking to your left. You don't see anyone coming, so you gun it without looking to your right, where I'm stepping off the curb to cross on my green light. I get that, because you've got the right of way as that pedestrian. But see, Annie is already saying she sees the driver misbehaving. And this is why I'm just asking the question of what is happening at an intersection with a red light where a person on a bicycle or a person walking is being hit. The driver absolutely is almost certainly only slowing down to make their right-hand turn. But as the person on the bicycle or the person walking, are you watching them? I think multiple things have to go wrong for that to end badly. And so Annie says this has happened to her many times. She's yelled at the drivers to get their attention. So Annie is aware of her surroundings, and she'll yell at the driver. It's happened to me too. I'm watching before I cross. It's kind of a habit I developed since being a kid. I've given up the yelling. I'll just wait for the dumb driver to do their dumb thing, and then I'll go on my merry way when it's safe to do so. I really think that, statistically, we know we have some of the safest roads in all of North America. If we use them properly, we're in a really good place. Instead of piling rule on top of rule on top of rule in the name of progress that I don't think is going to make a lot of progress at all. Talkback continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Email from Corey to Mike at 570news.com. Mike, I might be wrong on this, but isn't turning right at a red light pretty much the same as turning right at a roundabout? The driver is looking left, going right. If you're talking about banning right turns at red lights, why are we continuing to add more roundabouts to our roads? Corey, I like the way you think. We're just trying to make sense of what seems to be nonsensical at times. Talkback continues. To the phones we go. Lisa, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? Good.
Not to beat a dead or dying horse here, but this stopping at a red light, you know, I mean, if the driver actually stopped at the red light before they looked, that would probably solve some of the issues. But I'm in a rural community, and I could count on one hand the amount of times in the past couple of weeks I've actually seen a driver stop at a red light. In fact, they use the shoulder as a lane, and they just go. So what I do is my personal method is whatever I'm doing, the objects that are going to be bigger than me, I give a lot of respect. So if I'm a pedestrian, I look for bicycles, motorcycles, and anything bigger than me. If I'm in a car, I look for transport trucks or even your pickup truck with a trailer, because a lot of people don't realize if it's a business, more than likely they're rated for a lot more weight than what that truck is, because they're carrying tools and they're carrying weight in that trailer, and their stop time is the same as a transport truck, very close. So the people that are pulling in front of the truck and trailers don't realize that they're possibly coming really close to causing an accident as well. And I think there's a lot more close calls than we realize. I wish people would be a little bit more educated about what you're supposed to do as a pedestrian and what you're supposed to do as a cyclist, because I think that would stop a lot of the near misses or the accidents that are happening. But unfortunately, we don't do a lot of training in school anymore. There's no more bike rodeos, and the kids, you know, they're just kind of going out there and winging it unless they've got a parent that really knows the right way to be on a bicycle. So I'm surprised there's not a lot more accidents. So I'd like to see people be a lot safer out there. But I hope, positively I hope, but I'm just not sure it's going to happen.
Lisa, appreciate the call and the great explanation of what you've seen on the roads. It takes seconds just to make sure whatever way you want to go is a clear way. And I don't know why you wouldn't take those seconds. Grant, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. I think the Jays need to discipline Little and discipline the bullpen coach. And I'm pretty sure the bullpen coach could see that Little was not capable of pitching yesterday.
I was a little bit surprised Brendan Little came into yesterday's game as well, based on his outing the day before. But look, the pitchers in the Blue Jays bullpen are the pitchers that the Blue Jays got, and they're going to have to figure out a way through all of this. I know we're all engaged with the Blue Jays, whose lead in the American League East has shrunk to 2.5 games. Oh my gosh. But the bullpen has been a problem. Ian Hunter, our one and only Blue Jay Hunter, will be with us on the show tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. We'll get into some Blue Jays baseball for sure. Paul, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good.
Listen, earlier, the chief explained to me, why is it that people always have to use some other country as a comparison? Like he said, such and such a city, I forget which one it was he said, their crime rate, their murder rate, their
but it was
crime,
because it was very hang on, Paul, that's right, but hang on, but Paul, it was exactly relevant to what we were talking about. He used Kansas. No, yes, it was
talking about the U.S. Okay, why don't we talk about England instead?
Why don't I get
Why doesn't he use some town in England as an example?
Because he was just at this conference where... Okay, so do I get to answer your question, or are you just going to keep yelling at me?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So he was using, because he had just been at this conference in the United States, and we were talking about gun crime and gun violence here in the region. So he took a similar-sized city, Kansas City, Missouri, which is just over 500,000 people, so similar size to Waterloo region. We have had 13 shootings this year. They've had more than 500. We have had 0 homicides. They have had more than 100. How is that not relevant?
How?
How is that not relevant?
I'll tell you exactly how it isn't relevant. That's in the U.S. It is not in Canada. The laws are different in Canada.
Which is exactly what the chief said. He said, what kind of community do you want to live in?
I want to live in a community that's safe, where the criminals aren't turned right back out in the street as soon as they're arrested. I want to live in a community where somebody doesn't get arrested for defending themselves against a home invader.
Okay. I think the point was, and I think the numbers I just repeated to you make it sound like it is pretty darn safe around here. I'm not saying we're perfect, but it sounds pretty safe.
Here you go. Here's a comparison for you.
Okay.
Go online and look up the drunk driving stats and how many people are killed by drunk drivers in the States on every holiday weekend, and then compare that to Canada. And we're going to go percentage of population, because numbers don't matter, because the States is how many millions of people compared to 40 million in Canada?
So what are you telling me about the drunk driving fatalities in the States? They're 10 times higher than Canada?
No, there's a lot more than gun deaths.
Okay. So now we're mixing metaphors. I'm not sure what point you want to make here, Paul. I'm really not.
No, well, he wants to use examples from the U.S., so why don't we look at all the examples?
Well, then you have to compare. You want to compare drunk driving deaths in the U.S. to drunk driving deaths in Canada.
Hey, let's.
Okay, well then go do that for me and give me the numbers. You go do that. No, you love your research. Go do that research and report back. Drunk driving deaths in the U.S. versus drunk driving deaths in Canada, and let me know what you find.
Percentage-wise or per capita. I'll look that up for you, and you're not going to like the results. I can tell you, because I have looked it up before.
So what is? It's way more in the United States. Is that what you're saying?
It is.
Okay, but that's exactly like the gun crime.
It was way more in the United States. So why are you comparing Canada to the U.S.?
Okay, because that was relevant to the discussion at the time. We were talking about defend one's property, castle law here in Canada. Here's an example from a like-sized community in the United States where gun crimes are far greater, homicides far higher, and the statement or the question was asked, which kind of community would you like to live in? I think it's a very appropriate comparison, but maybe I'm missing something here. Andre, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. We just want to say, Mike, we really enjoy your show. We come into the Tri-Cities every week to do business, and we're from Etobicoke. So I wanted to comment on the no right on red thing.
Sure.
We're still on that, right? So I'm also an avid cyclist, and I do agree with you that we need the no right on red deal, especially in the city. Out here, we don't see it so much, but in the city, where it happens, you're questioning, how does somebody get hit at the right on red thing? Well, the motorist is coming up to the intersection. They're focusing on their left. The light in front of them's red, but the people are crossing on the green right in front of them. And they're not paying attention to the car. They're just going because it's green. Next thing you know, the guy goes to hang a right, and we almost seen a scooter, like a person on a mobility scooter, taken out the other day. I see it at least once a week.
I get that, Andre. I do. But I'm thinking that the person then, if you're on a bicycle or an e-scooter and you're coming through that crosswalk at a good speed, I think you got to be a little bit more wary than that, don't you?
Oh, first of all, when you're saying cyclists, I'm disgusted with my fellow cyclists in the city. They don't obey the rules. They run stoplights. I yell at them all the time. That's not, I'm talking about people on mobility scooters, people walking. I'm not talking about the clowns riding their bikes on the sidewalks, running right through. Yet they should be walking through the intersection on their bikes.
Yeah,
that's the law.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I'm not referring to that. I'm just referring to, we seen a guy in an accessibility scooter. I'm talking inches, just inches from being taken out from someone making a right on the red, because they just did not see him coming from the right. And you're so focused. As a matter of fact, I was knocked out. It wasn't at a light. It was a guy so focused on the left. Now, in the city, we got some pretty wide lanes of traffic, and I don't know if you've ever been to Brampton, but I don't suggest you go there and cross the road without a gun in your hand. But other than that, that's another story for another day, Mike. Just wanted to comment on the right on red thing.
All right. Andre, listen, I appreciate you checking us out when you're coming through town. You are welcome here anytime. Appreciate you.
Love this city, buddy. Thanks.
Thank you. I love this city too. And I want to be like abundantly clear here. I don't want anybody hurt. And I'm not trying to victim blame here. I'm just asking us to honestly, objectively think critically through what has to happen at an intersection where there's a red light and a vehicle is making a right-hand turn in order for a pedestrian and or bicyclist to be hit by that vehicle. Andre's getting to the nuts and bolts of it here. It would be the person that's in greatest danger is the person that's crossing right in front of that traffic that's supposed to be stopped at the red light. But if you are crossing that street as the pedestrian in the manner in which you are supposed to, which is by the power of your feet, which means you're not moving all that fast, and you just, I mean, for the vehicle to turn right, they're going to have to be into the crosswalk, right? And then they're going to make the turn around the corner. I'm sorry, but there's an opportunity here for the person on the bicycle or the person on foot or even the person in that mobility scooter to just slow down and make sure they don't get... I'm not saying the vehicle driver is right. Don't get me wrong on that. But there is ample opportunity to prevent a collision. All parties. So that's what I'm saying. Like, what has to go wrong at an intersection with a red light where the driver is making a right-hand turn in order for there to be a collision? How many different things have to go wrong? How many people have to make a mistake? And then just ask yourself, if we ban right turns on red lights, are we going to eliminate all those mistakes? My answer to you is no. And further, the crossing is much more dangerous on a green light because that's when pedestrians are in the crosswalk that you're trying to turn through. And they have the right of way. So then there's only one person that has to make the mistake, the driver of that car. Anyway, thanks, Andre, for getting us to the nuts and bolts of it as we continue Talkback here on the Mike Farwell Show in the fine community of Waterloo Region. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a busy Talkback hour, this back to school. Oh, wait a minute. It's a PD day. Hey, just a thought. For optics, for PR, teachers, unions, you might not want to schedule the traditional first day of school as a PD day. I'm just throwing it out there for a suggestion. That's all. Totally up to you what you do. But it's weird, and it smacks of bad PR from where I'm sitting. Hey, how about the federal New Democrats officially launching today their leadership race? How do you lead a party that no longer has relevance is another question to ask as we continue Talkback. I'm getting snarky towards the end of the show. Greg, good afternoon.
Hey, Greg, 38 here.
Number 38, member of the Farwell's force. Good day, sir.
That'd be me. And just, okay, on this red on red, I just want to clarify, in your scenario, which way is the pedestrian going? Like parallel?
Well, that's what I want to know. Like,
no, I'm just saying, like, on the one way, it makes sense that they should never be hit because, say, they got the red and they're waiting to go straight, and like, yeah, they should not be off the curb yet,
right?
If the car proceeds. But I'm just saying, if it's a pedestrian coming the other way, and as a car approaches, sees that it's red, in their mind they're already getting ready to do their right, and if it's still green the other way, and here comes a pedestrian, and you know, that's the ones that I can see. I
get that. So yeah, that would be the pedestrian crossing parallel, as you said, in front of you, right? Or perpendicular, pardon me.
Perpendicular.
Right. Yeah. And so I get you. And I think, but I want to know how that happens still, because there's a lot that has to go wrong in order for that collision to occur, because the pedestrian is clearly like not paying any attention to what's around them.
Well, see, again, if they say, hey, it's green, okay, and just keep walking, I don't think they're necessarily planning on eyeballing every car around to see.
I know, but you have to come from all the way from one side of the road to the other, Greg. Like, where are you? What are you looking at? I'm not trying to blame the pedestrian. I just want to honestly know how that could possibly happen.
Okay, well, like you say, if you're going down Weber, okay, you're going to turn on University. All right, so you You already see that, okay, it's red. I'm already thinking I'm going to make my right-hand turn. And then, if you look to the left, but don't look to the right, and all of a sudden there's a pedestrian.
But why did the pedestrian get in your way?
Why? Because they have the right of way.
I know.
That's what I'm trying to see which scenario, because, like I say, if you...
I'm just saying, if I'm that pedestrian, I'm not stepping off the curb when I see a car approaching the crosswalk that's going to not stop.
Okay, and I guess, even though they have the right of way.
Even though they have the right of way. That's all I'm saying. The driver would still be wrong, 100%. Yeah. But there are multiple things going wrong if a collision like that occurs.
Well, it's ultimately the driver.
It is. You're right. But there's an opportunity to prevent the collision.
Okay. Well, again, I guess that means that people that have the right of way can't just assume that.
Exactly. This is what I'm telling you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see which way was this pedestrian crossing in your scenario, because at first I thought you had him like right beside the car, and then for some reason.
Greg, you're complicating it.
No, that's why I wanted to see which one it was. But.
Okay. Now you got it. And that's all I'm trying to say. Like, the driver is still wrong. This is why I would ban right turns on reds, because we as drivers rarely stop before making our right-hand turn, right? So just take away the privilege. You've abused it. It's taken away from you. But if somebody's getting hit in that scenario, my gosh, a lot of things are going wrong. A lot of things. That's what I'm asking us to think about. Ernie, good afternoon.
Hey, Mikey, it was good to finally meet the man with the mic.
It was great to meet you and the kids Sunday as well at FanFest.
So, what a good-looking family. It's a good thing my wife has good genes, I guess.
You said it, not me, pal.
All right. But with all this talk now, I hate this time of season. Summer's ending. You kind of feel it. But at least there's, get rid of that CFL. But we got the NFL coming back this week, Mike.
Thursday night, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. But I also want to mention, too, once the Ravens win the Super Bowl this year, you need to have Tavius Robinson back on the show, Mike.
You need to settle down with the Ravens winning the Super Bowl.
Well, he's a good Canadian kid. You know what I mean? He's playing for the best team in the NFL, and I think just, bring some light to the Canadian guy from Guelph that made the NFL and is playing on the best team in the NFL right now, and bring him into the show, Mike.
All right, Ernie. I'm going to leave you right there because we've had him on the show before, but the best team in the NFL is the Pittsburgh Steelers. You keep cheering for your Ravens all you want. Sue, good afternoon.
And a wonderful good afternoon, sunny, warm day today. There is Herb Street difficulties with the one-way. A lot of people think it's both directions or something, but I wish the schools and the universities would advise the people that are drivers that this Herb Street only runs one way, totally different, The other thing is behind the Waterloo Town Square, there is a crosswalk there that they have to press, but you can't see the people because of the big hydro poles. It blocks their body shape. So you have to lean forward and back and around just to double check to make sure there's nobody standing behind those two big hydro poles, right?
I know exactly what you mean, Sue, and I'm sorry, but I got to run for time here. LRT in that area as well. You would be on Caroline there at that point in behind Waterloo Town Square. And I know what you're talking about. I would hope, though, my goodness gracious, would I ever hope that by now we know that Herb Street in this town is one way, right? Herb and Bridgeport, Duke and Charles. Oh, wait, Duke and Charles aren't one way anymore. They used to be. Wait, did Charles go back to one way? No. Did it? No. Anyway, Sue, thanks for weighing in. Be careful out there. School starts again tomorrow. We want everybody to get to school safely. And we'll come back tomorrow morning at 9, do this show all over again. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.